Recording in progress.
So, give me a second. So, in the last lecture, start करें? On है? Okay. So, in the last lecture, we were discussing about Aristotle, okay, and the important. Hi everyone. Hi. Audible? Just confirm if it's audible. Okay. Yeah. So, in the last lecture, we were discussing about Aristotle. Since there was a daybreak, I'll revise it a bit, so that there will be some things in your mind. Otherwise, you'll start afresh. Also, have you seen protest on the road? Now you're fine. Now you're like, okay, enough protest is happening, right? Lathi charge also happened. Okay, so now enough protest has happened, right? Okay, so hi everyone. Let's start with the protest. No, we'll not talk with the protest right now. We'll talk about the protest also. The reason being, we have to discuss what we call as a revolution also, because interestingly today only, if you are watching what is going on in Delhi, okay, so we have to discuss that part, because we have to discuss also Aristotle's opinion on revolution. Okay, so it's in a way a part of the syllabus for today. Okay, we have to discuss that part. So before I jump into anything else, let me just give you a brief summary or preview of what we discussed yesterday in the last lecture, and what we are going to do in this lecture. So in the last lecture, I gave you a basic idea who Aristotle was. Okay, if you see your handout, if you all of you have the handout with you, we went through a basic idea of where he was born, what he did, how he joined Plato when he was 17-year-old, and then he stayed with Plato for next 20 years in his academy, and then when after the demise of Plato, he went away from the university or maybe the school, and then he went on to also teach Alexander for a time being. Later on, he returned to Greece, to Athens, and opened a new school of his own called as Lyceum. Okay. Now, the most important book he wrote was Politics. The second most important text he wrote was Nicomachean Ethics. Okay. Now, you need to understand that the key idea in Nicomachean Ethics is what we called as Eudaimonia. So in this book, in ethics, as I told you in the last lecture also, for Aristotle, there is no difference between ethics and politics. Sounds very absurd in modern day and time, but for Aristotle, there was no difference between ethics and politics, and therefore Nicomachean Ethics is something where they are talking about how the state will become again a perfect state. For him, the perfect state was somewhat different from Plato's perfect state. For him, the perfect state was one where the goodwill of the people is done. Okay. Ultimately, people have to have or need to have or to get a good enough life. That is Eudaimonia. The word he specifically gave for the whole thing was called as Eudaimonia. Now, let me just write this thing, although it's already mentioned in your handout also. Okay. For the first time, this word was introduced in the syllabus. Again, keep this thing in mind. Effectively, everyone's idea is going to be Eudaimonia only. Okay, that is a place for people where they will fulfill their basic needs, where they will live longer enough, they will have a good enough life. So that is always there. Okay, it's the only interesting part here is in the Eudaimonia was used by Aristotle. Now, Beyond this, we discussed that he wrote some other texts like called as Organon, Metaphysics, Poetics, and Rhetorics. Okay, but these are some things which you don't have to go into too much detail. Okay. Now, in the last lecture only, we also discussed about the methods. For example, the teleological method, empiricism, and audit of the Plato. These are the basic things. Now, let me just remind you again. This is very important that you understand. Okay. Have you guys anyone heard what is teleology? Please write it in the comment section if you have read what is teleology. Teleology. Okay. Think about it. What is teleology? Teleology. Okay, if someone asks you what is teleology, or like whenever, in case if you don't know the name, you can always try to bifurcate it, yeah, or try to get to know this. Okay, Rijul is saying looking at the end or purpose of things. Yes. So teleology, for those who don't understand, consider it with tail. What is a tail? The one with the story one is TALE. Or this one. I'm confused now. Okay. Now, so what is a tail? End part. Okay, end part. So if we are talking about the end, okay, if we are talking about the end, that is a tail. Then if you are looking at anything with the end purpose in mind, okay, it is called as teleological approach. For example, I can ask you that who you are. That is a mechanical approach. I'm trying to understand who you are. But suppose if I ask you what purpose you serve, then the story is very different. Okay. If I start asking you what purpose you serve, then just give me a second. What purpose you serve, then its a story is very different. So teleological approach is this, which always asks what purpose or objective one is going to serve. Okay, so always keep this in mind. This is where teleology is coming from. If you are going to ask someone, for a normal human being also, if someone comes to your class and like some students comes to my class and I ask them what is your purpose, they will say clear the examination. This is a teleological approach towards looking at them. If I ask them why you are here, okay, and they instead of saying clearing the examination, they to gain knowledge, that is also their last objective. Okay, but if they ask him who they are, that's a different set of question. That's a mechanical approach. So teleology is something, if you are talking about anything and you are talking about the main purpose objective. So now when we are talking in terms of state and we take a teleological approach towards state, so we'll ask what purpose state has. State's objective, that is a question of teleological approach. Okay, if you see in your handout on page number 3, it's written 3 habits of mind defined his method, and the 2019 question, explain Aristotle's critique of Plato's idealism, is answered by all 3 together. First, he is empirical and inductive. We'll discuss about this. Knowledge becomes an observation of actual world, not in a separate realm. All that. Second, he is teleological. Everything has a telos, an end. And a thing is understood by the good it is meant to realize. Nature does nothing in vain. An acorn is understanding by the oak it is becoming, a state by the good life it exists to make possible. Fine. So what it says? It says the objective. Now, the second thing which you need to understand, which Aristotle focuses on, is empiricism and inductiveness. Empirical or inductive method. Empirical and inductive method. Now, what is this? Look, one of the major issue with Plato, the moment you talk about there is other realm where everything is perfect. Now, you don't have anything to quantify that perfectness. Okay. If you remember in the class on Plato, we discussed about there are different type of horses we have, and then there is a perfect horse. And I made the diagram for that in the handout, you have it. Okay. Now, what is this perfect horse? Will the perfect horse have 5 legs or 7 legs and 2 tails? No. So how you are going to quantify what is perfectness? Okay. So in the Platonic idea, the whole definition of perfectness it's also theoretical. It's not abstract. We don't know what it is. Okay. Just say that okay, there is a realm where things are perfect. What is this perfect? What are the characteristics, features of perfect, so that we can imbibe them? We don't have any idea. This problem Aristotle solves. Aristotle says that look, first of all, we need to empirically define what it is. Now, when we are talking about empiricism, we are also going to talk about numbers and all those things. Okay. Then he is also talking about inductiveness. Inductiveness means you read certain things and then you induce certain set of information. Now, both empiricism and inductiveness or induction is based on concept of observation. You observe certain things and then you induce an opinion about it. Okay, at least opinion. Okay, or you will induce, for example, you look at me like right now and you will opine that okay, fine, this guy is wearing a blue color shirt. Okay, you have induced that thing because you already have the idea of how blue color looks. So you have a set of information and you saw this color of shirt and you were able to induce it. So that is one. Then similarly the empiricism. Okay, you might be looking on a screen, you are looking at the front of me on a screen in front of you. So you can then quantify or empiricize, okay, what size this screen is or any other thing. So these are some characteristics. Now these characteristics are very important for Aristotle because it defines, it segregates, it separates Aristotle from Plato completely. Because Plato is not someone who will talk about these kind of things. He just okay, perfect, done. What is perfect? No idea. Philosopher King will tell you what is perfect. Fine. So that is one. Then the third thing after this is this is the second one. The third one which he comes up with is called as comparative and classificatory nature. This is the easiest one. Comparative and classificatory. Now, this is the third method which Aristotle uses. Now, comparison is something we all do. Between everyone we do. Okay. So, no matter which part of world you are from, no matter which place you are in right now, in which geographical location or which time zone you are, there is one specific thing about human beings which you will see always, that is the whole idea of them trying to classify things. Right? Human beings are habitual to classify things and compare things. Yes or no? They are habitual of comparing things. Whether right now, if you will see, the governments also compare it, countries always compare it. If we don't find anything else, we compare the GDPs itself. So there is always a sense of comparison going on between people. Okay, this is what comparative classification we are talking about. Okay, so that is one thing you have to keep in mind. Okay, now this one method is also there. So all these three methods Aristotle uses extensively. Now, if you see in your handout, it's written, thirdly, he is comparative and classificatory. He taxonomies, ranks, and seeks the best practicable arrangement, never only the best imaginable one. Now, if what we have discussed, I have to tell you this thing, that, and it is there in your handout also, that in his life, Aristotle, when he was given the responsibility to frame a new constitution, what he did was he first went through 158 different constitutions of different places at the time. Now, if someone is going through 158 different constitutions, the first thing they will do is compare the constitution. Then they will also classify the constitution. Okay. For example, while reading about Plato, we have read about the concept of what is a tyranny, what is a aristocracy, what is a democracy, and all that thing. Okay. So obviously Aristotle was also aware about these things, and all the 158, based on the 158 constitutions, he was able to classify these states, these countries, these places. Okay, so that is where he used this method also. Now, if you see this thing, the topic listing, and it's written, the first thing we have to cover is method, which we kind of have just now. Method, which is empirical, 158 constitution, and teleology. The second is the four cause and matter and form. Again, this is something we discussed in the last lecture. I'll go through it again. Then the theory of soul, the three faculties will define this thing. And this is a very interesting concept where Aristotle talks about soul. Now, you will and everyone will think that how the hell he is and why the hell he is talking about soul, isn't it? Now, Aristotle is talking about soul. But this is Plato's idea. These all things, Atma, Paramatma, all soul and all, this is something which Plato talks about, not Aristotle. So we'll discuss about is that, okay, if Aristotle is also talking about soul, then in what manner and what sense he is talking about soul. So we'll discuss it there. Then we'll talk about the polis. Okay, the man is a political animal. This concept, we'll discuss that. Then the natural state, household, village, we have discussed till this much. Citizenship, classification of constitution, polity and the middle class, rule of law over rule of men, the concept of justice, critique of Plato, okay, and these things. And meanwhile, while doing these things only, we'll also talk about Aristotle's definition of revolution. What is a revolution? When it happens, under what circumstances, what are the characteristic features through which you can realize that a situation of instability, whether it can be called a revolution or not, as well as what are causes and effects of revolution, both the things. Okay, this is very important. What are the major causes of revolution, and what will be the long-term and short-term impact of revolution? That also we have to discuss. Okay. Now, if you see your handout, yeah, this is what I just mentioned it. Now, the first thing we have to discuss about the foundation, that is the four causes. Okay, the four causes. Just open, yeah. The four causes and the state. Now, this is a very interesting concept, and we discussed it again day before yesterday in the last session. For anything, understand again, Aristotle, by now you have understood, he is the empirical guy, he is the rational guy, he is talking about things which are visible to him, otherwise he will not talk about it. So therefore he is saying anything in the world need to have certain key characteristics. Characteristic number one, the material resource, where it is coming from, what it is. Then the efficient cause, that is there a structure, is there a system who is leading that particular thing. Okay. Then the formal cause, which is the rules and regulation by which anything will work. And finally the objective of a thing, which is basically teleological approach to anything. So he says that whether it is the existence of a human being, whether it is existence of a government office, government organization, or it's the existence of the whole state, need to have these 4 features. And therefore, we specifically did it with the intention of state only. Obviously, we didn't jump into the whole theoretical concept of the 4 causes, the cause theory of Aristotle. That is a more philosophical approach. We are not going to go into it because it will just going to increase your syllabus. But doing that, he explained that the 4 causes have to be there for everything, and so the 4 causes will also be there for the state. What are the 4 causes for the state? Number 1, the material cause. Why we have the state? Because we have the people and we have the resources. We have to regulate that. The second thing, who does that? How it happens? That makes the efficient cause. Okay. And who does it? The leaders do it through the institutions. So that's the efficient cause. Then the third thing, the formal cause. Now, how it happens? How leaders do it? Through a set of rules and regulations and guidelines and government order, and ultimately the constitution. So that's a formal cause. And finally, the teleological approach will be taken, and ultimately comes the final cause, that is, what is the objective? So main objective is overall well-being and growth and development of the human being and humankind. That is that what state aspires towards through eudaimonia. Through eudaimonia. Okay, so that is the 4 cause thing. Now, any confusion in this very idea? This is something we discussed in the last lecture also. Anyone if has any issue, please write it in the comment section. Anyone here? Any problem? Fine. Now, okay. Now the next idea, and this is important, this when we have to go into more detail. Okay, yeah, here. We'll go one by one. Is the matter and form. Okay, matter and form. If you see in your handout, there is a heading, matter and form. Okay. Now, what is written here? Form is a concept which is associated with Plato, because in his theory of form, he discussed about this perfect form of everything, the ultimate good. Okay. Aristotle is saying that it is impossible to achieve that thing. Theoretically, it sounds great, but it is impossible to achieve. Okay. So therefore, you will see that what he says, that the direct answer to Plato is given by Aristotle. Form does not live in a separate perfect world. The form of a thing is inside it is. Now, this is something we have discussed in the earlier lecture, that for Aristotle, again, I'm repeating this, for Plato, there is a better realm. Okay. And we are in this realm. This is a shadow realm. Our objective is to go from here to here. This is the idea of Plato. This whole concept is based on the concept of dualism. This concept is based on the concept of dualism. That means the human beings and the gods are 2 different beings. That's what dualism says. And the ultimate objective of human beings is to achieve that God. But Aristotle says, don't know. This is not right. There is one being. Okay, sorry for the not good looking person, but this is my being. Now, this being has the soul. Now, a lot of people will think the moment it is said that you have your soul. If I'm telling you, like if I'm telling you guys that you have the soul, the first thing which comes into the head is, and it happens with everyone, that inside me there is another character. Inside me there is a soul. Fine? Yes or no? Inside me there is a soul. Yes? Okay. Aristotle says, no, this is not the case. Inside you there is no soul. Okay? But in principle, you are the soul. don't look at in the manner that inside you there is another human being, or because that is what comes into the head when we say that there is a soul inside you. You always think, okay, there is another me inside me which is a better me, and that is the soul. No, as if there is a machine and someone is operating from inside. No, it's not like that. He says that it's a characteristic feature. In principle, it's a characteristic feature which is with you, okay, but it is not as in there is an internal character inside you. So that is where he differentiates from Plato, but he also not thinks what you are thinking, as if there is another character which is inside you. That is not the case. So the form of a thing is inside it, as the shape is in the statue, and you study form of studying things. Okay. In one stroke, this collapses Plato's world into one. The exact hinge of 2019 critic question which came, I'll discuss with that. Plato's forms are abstract and divorced from experience. Now, this is a very, very interesting criticism of Plato. And this is, make sure you underline it in the handouts. It is said that this is the biggest criticism. When Plato is saying that this talking about two realms is not correct because we are unable to apply this whole system of empiricism on the other realm. Why he's saying? He's saying that, look, I have this method of looking everything from the empirical approach. I want to read it, analyze it, look at it, okay, induce things from it. I am not able to do it, so I will not accept this other realm. Okay, this is his Aristotle's reason to reject Plato's idea. But what is the criticism he is coming up with? Now, we all know that Aristotle has criticized Plato and Platonic theory of form. But what argument he used to criticize it? The argument he used to criticize is written here, please underline. Plato's form are abstract and divorced from experience. They are too simple for a changing world and ungrounded in practice. Can you see that? Please confirm it in the comment if you can. In the handout it's written, Plato's form are abstract and divorced from experience, too simple for a changing world and ungrounded in practice. Okay, that means, like, if suppose Plato says that every human being, since there is one human being who had a 100-meter time of 9.58 seconds. Now, when it comes to running on a track, that's the best time. Now, Plato says that for running, this person is best. Now, all people should aspire to become this person. Everyone should aspire? No, there might be a 90-year-old person. To hell with 90-year-old person, the same Usain Bolt at this date, he is not properly able to walk sometimes. Okay, he cannot score the same thing. So there are a lot of other characteristic features that have to be looked into consideration. Time is one of the major factor. Okay, along with time, geography and other things, and Plato's form is too abstract. It is not connected. It's divorced from the real human experiences. It is too simple because the world is changing, and with that change, everything changes, but Plato's form doesn't change. Okay, and therefore, it is not correct to be used as a comparison barometer. Now, he says the soul follows the same logic. The soul is the form of a living body, its organizing principle. Now read this thing. Not a separate immortal substance imprisoned in a flesh. Okay, that contrasts Plato's Phaedo. Okay, Plato's Phaedo. Now let me explain Phaedo, otherwise you'll keep on confusing this thing. Just make a box somewhere and write this thing. What is Phaedo? Anyone has heard about this Phaedo? It's a small text written by Plato. No? Okay. So, have we discussed this thing that Socrates was forced to drink hemlock or drink and poison and die? Yes or no? Yes? Yeah. So, when Socrates, a day before, it is said that a day before, when Socrates was already told that tomorrow morning you have to drink hemlock and die, evening, like in the eve, the day before the day of justice or day of death, all the students of Socrates reached out to him and they asked him that master, it will be better if you just leave the city, get rid of all this. Okay. And he said that no, I will not. And he said that and this is Socrates' idea. Okay. Socrates argued that the objective of the human life is to ultimately reach the death. Objective of the human life is to ultimately prepare itself, okay, for the death. That is what soul is doing. Now this whole writing is written in Phaedo, which is done by Plato. So Plato in his written text Phaedo has written about Socrates and the idea that objective of life is to reach death. And if someone is helping him do that, why the hell he should stop and not do it? Okay. If someone is helping him to do it, he will surely do it. So that is what is written in Phaedo. And this idea is something which is again rejected by Aristotle. Who rejects this idea? Aristotle. Aristotle says that this whole concept which is mentioned in Phaedo is not correct. Fine. So that also you have to keep in mind. Now, he says, Aristotle says that a soul therefore is in principle. Like for example, soul, how I'll explain soul? So I'll explain soul. Suppose, I'll explain in a better sense. Suppose there is a laptop in front of me. If I pick up my laptop and show it to you, you will say it is a rectangular thing. Okay. So for laptop, there is a shape. The shape is with the laptop. Yes. But is the shape inside the laptop? There are no handouts in the group. Could you please help where it's uploaded? It's Aristotle's handout. I think so. It must have been uploaded. If it's not uploaded, please. Okay. In the group, it's not uploaded. Just give me a second. It's not uploaded. अपलोड नहीं हुई क्या हैंड आउट ग्रुप में बच्चों को पूछ लीजिए एरिस्टो मतलब जो तीसरा और चौथा वाला थर्ड पे देख लीजिए पूछ लीजिए इट्स देयर 13 July. It was shared on 13th of July itself. Check it once. Yeah. It's there or not? Please check it and confirm. Please check it and confirm. Okay. Now, it's important that you have people handout. Okay. Now, understand. Meanwhile, he's checking. Let me explain. He says that the soul has three characteristic features. Okay. Or what we call as the three faculties of the soul. What are these three faculties? Okay. So, faculties of soul. Number one is nutritive, which is something is taken from the plants. Plants have it. Okay. Plants have it, the nutritive faculties, and so that they. Fine. The second is sensitiveness, or this is from animal. Now keep this thing in mind that animal, when we are moving, that means animal will have nutritiveness and sensitization also. The idea is that obviously we know it well enough now. The technological advancement has happened and we understand this thing that even the plants feel sensitization. Okay. But this writing is from 2500 years back, and in those times it was considered that yes, plants are beings, but the whole sense that they have the sensitivity, they can sense this feeling, that was not there. Okay, and therefore it was the first stage. The nutritiveness was considered to be taken from plants, the sensitiveness was taken from animals. That means animals have these both things. And the third thing is rationality, which is only with the humans. That is what again was considered. Now this is again now countered. If you see from modern sciences, you will see even animals are rational, pretty rational. Okay, it's not like if you put a pond, animal will go and just jump in it without a reason. They are very clear, very shrewd, will act according to their well-being. But obviously this whole writing has been written so long back that this was the common perception. So a soul has these features. It has sense of nutrition for its existence. It then have the sense of sensitization, or it senses things. And finally, it also have the sense of rationality. Okay, so these are the three faculties which, as per Aristotle, soul need to have. In Plato's soul, do we know anything about Plato's perfect? Soul is perfect. In Plato's idea, do we know anything about the soul? No. In Aristotle's idea, we also know things about soul. This is the whole idea of Aristotle, that he will be able to induce things, express things, give you reasoning for it. Okay. Now, after this, if you'll see again in your handout, there are two names written. One is W.D. Ross and another is Richard Sorabji. If you see in your handout, there are two names, W.D. Ross and Richard Sorabji. Okay. These are both scholars from UK. Okay. W.D. Ross is someone who has extensively written on Aristotle, and he is the actual person who has translated all the content, Aristotelian writings and all those things, from the earlier times, the Greek times, into English text. Okay, so whatever we know about Aristotle, we know it from the writings of W.D. Ross. Okay, this is also a scholar which is mentioned in your IGNOU book. So this is a scholar we have to use when we are talking about Aristotle and where we are fetching this information. Like I told you all this story that Aristotle, see this, he's a student, he was born here, he did that, he wrote that book in Nicomedean Ethics, what he wrote. Where the hell I know all these things? I know all these things because W.D. Ross has written all these things in the translated work of Aristotle. Fine. Then who is Richard Sorabji? Now, while Ross wrote about Aristotle and translated Aristotle's work, Aristotle have been alive a long year back, in like 2500 years back. Okay. Since then, a lot of other people, right from in the what we call now as the Dark Ages, what we call as the medieval times in Europe, throughout the period, even Hobbes, Locke, all these modern scholars since 1600, all and everyone has commented on Aristotle. Yes, they have made good observation, bad observation about Aristotle. They have analyzed, either supported Aristotle or criticized Aristotle. So he has translated Aristotle's work and he has analyzed all the subsequent work done on Aristotle. Okay, so these are two very important people, and if you quote them for Aristotle, that will be the best thing. You can always quote other modern scholars, Sabine and all, which will be there. Okay, fine, okay, and then fine, great. Chalo. Everyone have the handouts? If you don't have the handout, please reach out to the team. Okay, if you don't have the handout, please reach out to the team. And also what we are doing is just to understand at what stage everyone is at of preparation. We're also planning to have a one-on-one session of like 15 minutes, 20 minutes with each student. I will have it personally. Okay, and it won't be done in a single day. So someone from the team will reach out and we'll have a conversation whenever we'll schedule it accordingly, so that you can also make a time for it. And I'll have a 15-20 minute conversation just to understand what you are doing, where you are, okay, what way we can help you out in the best way possible. So we'll pick up from that also. That sessions will be scheduled in this week only, and first everyone will be sent a message. Okay, accordingly you can tell, they will give you 2-3 different slots. Okay, and you can reply back that on what slot you are free, and then your slots will be arranged. Okay, so that will be done. In that also, before that, if you have, or after that, otherwise you have any notes, any things you don't have access to, please reach out to the team immediately. Okay, because without the notes in the hand, the sessions will not make much sense. Okay, so understood who these scholars are. These are mentioned. If you see in the handout also, it's written W.D. Ross and Richard Sorabji note the loose joints, but the political payoff is immediate. Now there is space. If you have the handout with you, if you want to write it, you can write this thing over there. Ross is known for translating Aristotle's work, and Sorabji analyzed all the subsequent work done on Aristotle. Okay. Now, two more tools. These tools we have discussed again. What are the 10 categories and syllogism. Now these are some small tools which we have discussed in the previous lecture, and right now we don't have to go into too much detail of this. Chances of these 10 categories coming in exam is very less. But let me just tell you that again, building on Aristotelian concept, Aristotelian way of working, what Aristotle used to say, how you will define anything, you have to define. Okay, I have a watch in my hand. How I'll define this watch? There's a strap of leather in this. There's a lot of steel used in it. Okay, there's glass used in it. Okay, and there are other stuff, material, a lot of other material will be used in making a watch. Okay, now, so there are substances. Okay, there is a role which this watch has to play. Okay, there is a state, there is action. So there are different dynamics in which a particular, any material, anything has to be looked into. And he says that there are 10 categories in which anything and everything can be divided. Now this is a very big ask. Aristotle is saying that there are 10 things in which 10 categories under which anything can be divided, anything can be defined. Now frankly speaking, in the modern day and time, you can obviously always say that look, there will be infinite dimensions to anything. Anyone saying that any object, any material, anything can be defined in 10 and 10 categories alone, okay, is out of their mind. There are infinite dimensions to everything. We know about the concept of string theory and whatnot. Okay, so this is not true. But again, we are talking about 2500 years back. This is more of a time where science was all what you can see in front of you. And from that perspective, he says that the 10 categories which one needs to look into, and you can read it in the handout also, and I'll show it on the screen. If you can see everyone. Needs to be zoomed out a bit. I have zoomed it too much. Wait a second. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. What happened? Okay. I think it's visible to everyone. Substance, quantity, quality, relation, place, time, position, state, action, affection. Okay. These are the things which anyone and everyone has to look into for understanding of anything. Okay. Now this is true for a smaller thing. Yes, it is true for a watch. Yet is it true for a laptop? It's for a mobile. For a human being, it's true. Okay. But is it true for everything? No, it is not true for everything. In the modern day and time, there are enough criticism of this method also, but these are very rudimentary methods which was mainly made by the visualization approach. What can I see? What can I feel? That way. Okay, so these was his. So his inventory of the most general ways of classifying anything, the distant ancestors of every data scheme and the comparative framework, critics find them broad and overlapping, but the instinct to classify before judging is the political scientist's first habit. Now this is very important. What you will say, like, do you need to remember all the 10 categories for the examination? No. If you are doing it, you are wasting your time. You don't need to compare it. All you need to know is you need to remember that Aristotle in a very rudimentary, and you can write it on the side, Aristotle in a very rudimentary approach came up with the 10 categories to define, anything. Aristotle in a very rudimentary approach came up with this method to define anything. Okay. Subsequent critiques found these categories. Subsequent critiques found these categories too broad. Subsequent critiques found these categories too broad and overlapping. Too broad and overlapping. Okay. But the instinct to classify things before making an observation about them was much appreciated. But the instinct to classify things before making observation about them is much appreciated. By political scientists. Okay. Now, syllogism is something we have discussed in the previous lecture. Okay. Anyone who still have confusion about syllogism, just tell me. Anyone who still have a confusion about syllogism? Anyone? No? Okay, just write down example of Aristotelian syllogism. Anyone can come up with any example of Aristotelian syllogism? Anything? For someone who doesn't know syllogism, look at this. The deductive reasoning in 3 steps. Number 1, all humans are mortal. Socrates is human, therefore Socrates is also mortal. Okay? Simple thing. 3 statements. 2 are the basic, building the basic idea, and the 3 is using the above 2 statement to conclude. Okay? So that's very, very, very simple. All human beings are mortal. Socrates is human being, and therefore Socrates was also mortal. Just the basic idea. And now he used it extensively to come up or define his technique, his ideas. Okay. Now, The next idea is Aristotle's concept, or basically the whole idea of ethics before politics. Now we'll discuss about this. Ethics before politics. Ethics before politics. Eudaimonia, Eudaimonia, Eudaimonia. Now, if you see, it's written in your handouts also. So, keep this thing in mind. For Aristotle, ethics and politics are the same things. For him, for Aristotle, not you and me, but for Aristotle, ethics and politics are the same thing. Okay. Now, if ethics and politics are the same thing, then what will happen? Politics will become based on integrity, honest. Okay, don't laugh. Okay, but now he is saying, now virtue is mean between two voices. Okay, virtue is the mean between two vices. Any two extremes, and this is something which someone like Gautam Buddha also came up with. Okay, the virtue is in between. The virtue is in between. Now, extremes of anything will be bad, and the best will be in the middle. This is the idea. Okay. Just like Gautam Buddha used to say that two extremes are bad. The best path forward will be the midway, the mid path. The same idea is also to be used here. Okay. The two extremes are bad, and the best way forward is to follow the mid path. That is what Aristotle is also saying. Okay. So he specifically talks about the concept of mean. The concept of mean. Got it? The concept of mean. So the mean between two vices. For example, in your handout you will see courage is between cowardice and rashness. So one human behavior can be that you start a fight and you behaved in a sheepish manner and just ran away. That is you being too coward. The other will be you saw two people fighting, okay, and they were arguing on the roadside, and then you went inside your house and you brought a sword and start killing both of them. That is rashness. This was also not needed. Okay, if two people were just talking to each other, so that doesn't mean you just go with a sword in the fight. Okay, so that is rashness. So what is it? If on the one side you have someone who's coward and someone who is too rash, so what will be there in between? What will be there in between? What is called as courage. Okay, that yes, you will go and you will talk to them in the fight, but neither you are going to run away nor you are going to beat them up. Okay, you are going to try and resolve, but you will take a steadfast stance that okay, fine, listen to me, why the hell you guys are fighting, right? So you have to take a mid path in between. Now, similarly, there is another example written. For example, there can be someone who is too mean, meanness or extravagance. What is there in between? The idea of generosity. Okay. Now, in the best of the situation, this mean is then called as golden mean. This mean is then called as golden mean, which is the perfect sphere where one has to behave, where one has to work. Okay. Now, we will discuss about this, that Aristotle has said that in a state in a state, okay, there is one way of regime where you will see absolute anarchy will be there, which is also called as state of nature. State of nature. Okay. And on the other side, there is a concept which is called as authoritarian rule. Okay. Or we also call this thing tyranny. Fine. So these are the two extremes. These are the two extremes. What is there in between? There has to be something in between. The golden mean. He'll say we have to make sure that there is no anarchy also, and there should be no rule of a single person or single office or single institution. No one should be too powerful, and there should not be a condition when there is no one powerful. Okay, so there has to be a golden mean. This golden mean, he says, what is the golden mean here? No. Democracy, though, his whole lineup is criticizing, right? Yeah. So he came up with the golden mean. He called it polity. And we'll discuss about this. Okay. We'll discuss what are the features of polity and all. Leave it. But just understand that in this, when it comes to the whole system of the state, there also he applied this whole concept of golden mean. Now, this whole golden mean will work when there is a middle class. Now, understand again. If everyone is very poor, what will happen? Tell me. If in a country everyone is hand to mouth, then what will happen in that country? There will be too much simple language. You will not have to theorize it. If everyone is too poor, then no one will follow the institution. Everyone will fight among themselves. There will be continuous fight. There is a safety issue, security issue. Okay, everyone is too poor. They are not getting meals to eat. Then what you will do? You will do anything just to make sure that you have the food, the first basic requirement. So that is one extreme. Imagine if everyone is too rich. Everyone is too rich. Imagine Dubai, but without the Malayali people. What will happen? Without the Indians and not only Malayalis, but without the Indians and the Pakistani and the Bangladeshis and the Nepali and the Bhutanese, just the Dubai people. If only the Emiratis are left to their devices, with the money also, what the hell they will do? They all will fight that we all deserve to get the money. Right? What will happen? If GCC countries, if something like a Saudi Arabia is left on their own devices, the Dubai or places like Jeddah and Doha are left to their devices, what the Emirati population will do? Emirati population have certain advantages from the state, certain type of funding, certain type of facilities. So the need, the urge to achieve something is not there. Because again, teleological approach, why do you need it? What you will do with it? That question comes in. Think about it. If you are living in a place and you know you do something or you don't do anything, at the end of the year, you will get $1 million. And there is a surety that your health facilities will be there. There's security and your children will also be getting education. Okay. Then your parents will be taken care of. Your children will get education. The health facilities for everyone. There's security. And at the end of the year, you will also get $1 million for doing nothing. Then what will happen? I'm not saying there will always some exceptions, but for most of the people, for them to excite them to work, I'm not saying that these people are not good for anything, they will never do anything, but to excite them to do anything, it's a very difficult task. It will take a lot more to excite them. right? On the other hand, someone who don't have things and he has to prove themselves because he has to earn living will be able to do things at a smaller price and immediately. So if you see at one stance, there is complete anarchy. Okay, there are too many poor people, they'll fight. And on the other side, there are too rich people, everyone is rich. Then also it becomes very difficult. You go not only to Dubai is one such example, you go to Monaco, you see it various places which are what we call as tax heavens, okay, and you will see that if you take out the people who are there to serve the service sector, that state will not be able to function because the rich people can spend but they themselves will not be able to work. So if you just leave the rich people to their devices or you leave the poor people to their devices, neither of the system will work. So you need to have some people who are not so poor that they have to fight, but also they are not so rich that the whole will to work goes away. And this very class is called as middle class. Okay? They are not so poor that they will die of hunger or something if they don't fight for their food. Also, they are not so rich that they can just sit in their house and they can enjoy the life. And this very class, which is aspirational on one side and have to take care of bills, this class becomes the what is called as golden mean. Right? This class becomes the golden mean. So this concept will come in a minute. Okay, so that just you keep in mind. Now when we have to apply the golden mean concept, I have just applied the golden mean concept with the respect of state. We'll discuss about this in a minute. Okay, right now in your handout, if you come to on page number 5, you will see it's written as the middle class. The social embodiment of the mean, okay, is the middle class. Finally, one more concept on which needs to be discussed: the master science. Political science is the master science, which is the architectonic discipline that arranges every other human pursuit towards the common good. When he says man is a political animal, he is not flattering politician. He is saying that the political community is where human nature completes itself. His 3 friendships of utility, pleasure and virtue, the last alone lasting round out the ethics base. They serve your essay and interview more than paper 1. Now this is very important. This is otherwise useful in your essay section and other sections also, and therefore you should know that political science is considered a architectonic of other disciplines, and this is a question which have directly come in the examination also. Now what do you understand by the word architectonic? Everyone knows what is tectonic plates? What are tectonic plates? So it's solid magma. Okay, lithosphere. Okay, it's a concept which the scientists came up in the 19th century something, where they talked about that there are certain plates which are continuously moving towards each other or away from each other on the earth. Okay, and what we consider as land is on the top of it, and basically they are flowing. Okay, but the flow rate is so slow that we don't feel like flowing. Okay, that's simple as that. Now architectonic means there is an arc and everything is inside it. That's it. Okay, architectonic means a super bowl, a ball which can carry everything. That's what architectonic means. Fine, so keep that thing in mind. The point here is that because they are talking about the middle class, because they are talking about the mean, they are in a way are able to act as an architectonic discipline that arranges every other human pursuits towards the common good. What is the common good? The ultimate common good is establishment of eudaimonia. Okay, now And next idea, which is there, if you'll see, the natural state, household to village to polis. The natural state, household to village to polis. We have discussed this thing, that for Plato, the center of everything was an individual. Okay, in a sense. Okay, ultimate overall things is between the individual and the state. There are two things for Plato. There are two things: individual and state. That's it. Nothing in between. Every individual will have a direct connect with the state. Fine. And this is Plato's idea. Here it is different. Here you will see household, village, and then the state. State, which is here called as polis. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. And then household will have the individual. This is Aristotle's idea. This is very important because this also shows that Aristotle is not someone who is going to ask for doing another thing. What is that another thing? To dissociate the state from, dissociate the individual from the family. Aristotle is not someone who is going to ask to dissociate individual from the family. This is very, very, very important. Okay. Now, so you see the first great claim, the state is natural. Now this is also very important. Later on thinkers, and we'll discuss about them in the upcoming classes, like Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, okay, Rousseau, Jean-Jacques Rousseau says the same: state is made. Aristotle says it grows. The household arise for daily needs, household cluster into village for wider needs, and village fuse into the polis, the first community that is self-sufficient. The crucial turn, the polis comes into existence for the sake of life, but exists for the sake of good life, as natural to us as the oak is to the acorn. Now, understand this point. This is a concept which is propounded by a lot of other people. Thomas Hobbes, for example, says that when the human beings are born, on day one, there was no state. Okay, and state was made by an understanding between the people and the institution. Other scholars also says that yes, state is made. In the Rousseau, for example, Rousseau, although we'll discuss about him, and Rousseau says then when state was not there, then everything was nice, and state has created the problems. But we can discuss that thing later. But effectively, he is also accepting what state is made, intentionally made, as if few people sat together and decided that a country needs to be made. Okay. Aristotle is saying no, it's not like that. It's an organic concept which evolved on its own. Okay. Family was always the elementary unit. So human beings, out of their own behavior and needs, they live in a family. And then families started living in villages. It could be because of security reasons. It's obviously they also realized that cooperation can reduce the problems they have, whether it is safety, security wise, or also to fulfill their basic essentialities. For example, tomorrow, just think about it. Tomorrow, if you feel plan like, okay, fine, leave all this. I am going to live in a village, or sorry, I am going to live in a forest alone. I'll make a new house and I'll live in a forest. What do you think? Will the overall cost of your living will increase or decrease? There is no cost. Why are you thinking like that? You look at the way you live. Okay, you need a phone, you need electricity, you need Wi-Fi. When I'm saying to you that you go and live in a forest, I'm not saying that you go and live on a tree in a forest. When I'm saying that, okay, you are going to live in a forest, you have to maintain the way you live. What do you have to do? First of all, you have to provide a guard system or something, or a guard rails have to be put in, and some area has to be made. Okay, I'll make my house here. Then I have to make some system so that the animals don't get inside my house. Then you have to stretch wires for electricity from the city area to the forest area. Then some Wi-Fi connectivity issue will be there. You might raise some kind of tower or something. Okay, some set of electricity thing has to be set up. Some connectivity issue, road has to be built up. Right? All those things have to be done. Now, what it will be easy for you to do it individually or do it in a group? Group. That's why villages were made. Simple as that. The basic elementary level for human beings were always a single family. That's a human behavior, that you will live in groups. Okay, but in family. Moving to villages was a very basic urgency. If you want safety and security, it can be very easily provided in the village. When the groups became bigger from villages, it evolves into polis, or what in modern times we call as state or city-state. Okay, and the city-state ultimately into what in the modern day called as countries. Okay, so that is how it all started. Now, on the first day of the making of this whole villages and then polis, the objective was always to provide safety and security for the sake of life. Okay. Now, this is something great among the human beings. And this will also be interesting because it will be useful in few minutes when we'll talk about revolution and that concept. Think about it. Tell me one place where the people are very happy with their government. Anywhere in the world, anywhere you have read where people are really happy with their government. Huh? Iceland. Do you really think Iceland people are really happy? I can give you like 5 examples when people of Iceland have been protesting against the government. Have you ever heard about the abortion laws in Iceland? The people hate their government. Okay. From topic to topic you can come up with, and you will see that people sometimes are like, no, this particular law in our country is nice. That can happen. But in a holistic sense, have you ever found any group of people completely happy and satisfied with their government? Huh? RSS is a group. It's not a people. Common people. Anywhere in the whole country, not in India, but in the whole world or any other time period, not contemporary times. Anyone? Okay. Anyone? No? Yes? No? Why no? Where always? No. Look, this whole idea, the Plato's idea of a perfect state, is an oxymoronic concept. There will be no time when you will see you have achieved everything. It's a human behavior. If you will not have a job, the first thing will be like, I should get a job. Once you'll have a job, you'll say, I'm unsatisfied. I need a better job. I need a salary hike. I need this and that. For hell's sake, like 4 or 5 days back only, we went to meet one of a topper IAS officer. Okay, one of a person who has got first rank, 17 or 18 years back, the IAS first rank holder. Okay, and we met, we had a conversation, and the person was really upset, down. He's a government employee, IAS officer, senior ministry, and the person was like, okay, if you ask them, they're like, it's a boring job. Damn, they got the rank 1 in that year. Okay, and they're like, they're bored. What the person is trying right now to do, if I tell you, laugh, they are trying to break big on Instagram. So they are making reels and posting it on Instagram so that they can get some visual attraction because they are bored in their job. Okay, so no matter what you will get, you will never be satisfied. Like for example, all the people in the class who are sitting online or offline, everyone will have the same one thing. I should get the first rank in UPSC, right? That is the greatest thing that can happen, at least in the next 1-2 years. Okay, I just met a person who got that rank 18 years back. Yeah, 18 years back. Okay. And the person was like, I'm bored. And I'm trying my best that my Instagram picks up. I'm like, Instagram picks up? Don't you have anything better to do in your life? Like, no, I want my Instagram to pick up. So, nothing wrong on person's side. You need to understand that human behavior is like this. No matter what you do, you'll never be satisfied. Okay? You'll never be satisfied. Okay, don't ask me this. Some people on YouTube asking me who this person is. I can't tell you that. Pretty senior officer. Yeah. So, but anyway. So the idea here is that just like a human being, state behaves in the same manner. Because what is state? It's a group of people. That's what state is. So the way a human being will behave, the state will also behave. So just like you will never be satisfied by your achievements, the people living in the state will never be satisfied by the achievement of the state. So this whole idea of what is a good life will never be explained. There are always a scope of improving good life. Okay, you and me, we think that people living in Scandinavian countries are great. Okay, everything is going great. Okay, for example, what do you think? How is Norway? Norway is a good place or bad place? In comparison to India, people consider Norway people will go to have a good life. Okay. If you ask people of Norway, they're like, yeah, we have good life. If you see, they never look like they are laughing or anything. They always look pretty upset. Okay. No, this is a proven thing. The Scandinavian people, they are like, it's just all like, how's life? It's good. There's a difference between someone saying, yes, it's good, and someone saying, yeah, it's good. What happened wrong? Nothing happened wrong. What is going on? Yeah, everything is going on. So, monotonicity, that happens. Okay, so if you try to perfect everything, that can also happen, and that is also a problem. So, those things have to be keep in mind, that what you are looking for in Eudaimonia. Now, in 2002, long back, there was a question. The state is by nature clearly prior to the family and the individual, since the whole is of necessity prior to the part. Okay, this is a statement in Politics which was asked verbatim. Now, politics means Aristotle. So, in Aristotle's book, it is written, the state is by nature clearly prior to the family and the individual, since the whole is necessary prior to the part. Now, how you explain this thing? So, he explained this thing in this manner, like for example, what is more important, you as a person or your hand? You as a person or hand? If I'll give you, to make it more easy, if I give you an example, I'll chop off your hand or I'll kill you. If you have just these two options, it's pretty bad options, but yeah, if you have only either one to select, either I'll chop off your hand or I'll shoot you. What will you choose? Chop off my hand. That's the relationship between a household and the state. State is the whole. Household or individual are parts of body. Okay. Are they essential? They are the most essential things. Without the body parts, there will be no body. But if push comes to shove, the saving of the complete identity is more important than the individual. So why this idea needs to be explained. On one side, Aristotle is saying that everything is like this. This is family. And this on the top is state. So it's upside down pyramid. But if push comes to shove, family or individual can be let go, just for the safety of the whole state. Okay. Therefore, the state by nature clearly is prior to the family and the individual. State by nature is clearly prior to family and individual, since the whole is necessary part, and the whole is of necessity prior to the part. Okay, this is how you explain this idea. Now, if you see on next page, there is a diagram: household, village, and then polis. Man is by nature a political animal. Okay, the whole is prior to the part. A severed hand is a hand in name only. Okay, if you dissociate, kick out a hand, cut a hand, and throw it away, the identity of the hand on its own is none. Right? So therefore, now prior here is logical, not chronological. Families obviously existed before the state. That is true. He means priority the way the body is prior to the hand. A hand severed from the body is a hand in name only, because its function exists only in the living whole. So with us, a human cut off from all the political community cannot exercise the distinctively human capacities. And one who genuinely needs no polis is either a beast or a god. Okay, this is the one famous, very famous quote. You can underline this thing. One who genuinely needs no polis is either a beast or a god. Now understand this thing again in detail. Who will human beings, from here we are able to appreciate this thing. Human beings like to live in communities. One who likes to live in community, okay, is either a beast or a god. Okay, that's the observation. Now from this, a lot of people think that, okay, if they are loners, they are cool. Okay, don't try to become the sigma male saying that okay, I live alone, so I am cool and I am either beast or god. Since I don't have horn, I must be god. No, doesn't work like that. Okay, we are not talking in that sense. Ultimately, human beings, if anyone lives alone, keep this thing in mind. You don't live alone. You live in the 21st century contemporary times. Okay, you live on your phone. Okay, no one lives alone. People understand this from 18th, 19th, 20th century. This whole idea of living alone has evolved. Human beings never live alone. Okay, back in the 1950s, 1960s, people who like to live alone, they were living with their books. In 21st century, people who live alone, they live with their phone. No one lives alone. Okay, that's a human idea that we live alone. No one lives alone. Even if you are living alone, you are living with your phone. Okay, and through your phone, you are basically more related or connected to the world than most of the other people without the phone are, who are living with their families. So this is the whole idea that, and this is therefore true, that human beings are political animals. Okay, they live in the society, they participate in the process of the polity. Okay, and anyone who is not is either a beast or a god. Okay, now for example, in the class online, people, how many people are aware about the protests going on in Delhi today? Yeah. How many people are aware about the protests going on in Delhi? Online people? Yeah, Rijul is saying he is aware. Okay. Now, think about it. Yeah. You are not participating in the protest, but you are aware. You are aware because you must have seen it on TV or YouTube or on some electronic platform somewhere, right? So you are now involved. That is what involvement means. Okay, involvement doesn't mean you actually participating and coming and participating in person. Even the very presence in this way is involved. Now, the polis exists. Now, if you see it's written here. This is the organic view of state opposed to the mechanical contractual view for the next 2000 years. From the some soil, man is by nature a political animal. The proof is speech with which we deliberate about the just and the unjust. A being equipped to argue about justice is designed to live in a community that decides justice together. Now, again, this in a way resolves a lot of other issues. It says that in a way actually it answers what justice is also, but we'll not focus on that for now. Just focus on this idea that what tools we use, okay, to show that human beings are political animal. The proof is speech, which is in Greek is called as logos, with which we deliberate about what is just and what is unjust. The concept of what is just and what is unjust is also decided by the people's deliberation on it in the public sphere. So that whole idea also evolves from there. Now, just for example, two people here said that they are aware about the protests going on in Delhi right now. Think about it again. You knowing it or not knowing it is not going to make much of a difference, but now you know it and you will discuss it with people around you. Okay, it will impact your sensibilities, and just like you, it will impact a lot of people's sensibilities all around India. Now, this impact can also be seen when you'll be making vote, when you will be casting vote in the next election. And this is ultimately what we have to focus on. That this is how your opinion, your observation is going to make an impact on the process of politics in the longer term. Fine. This is how one can say man is by nature a political animal. And when one is saying man by nature, that doesn't mean that man in the sense of only the male. Here, because obviously it was the Aristotelian trying ancient Greece. So when we are talking about man in the modern time, we will consider it human beings. Okay. Now, just a moment. Okay. If you see here, two statements are written here. The polis exists by nature and it is prior to the individual. Growth story, logical sense of prior, severed hand, or beast or god line can be written in this answer. The second question, which was asked in 2011, the state is a creation of nature and man is by nature a political animal. Okay. State is a creation of nature and man is by nature a political animal. Comment on this, that was the whole question. It can be easily answered as in natural growth, as in what has happened. State is made by nature. That means, how you will explain it? You will explain that state evolved as a natural thing. First, people started living in groups. That group became villages. Villages became polis. The polis we call as city-state. Ultimately, it evolved into states. Okay. So it evolved as a natural growth for self-sufficiency, and ultimate aim of these whole state, or what we called as polis, became good life of people. The tools they use in the modern day and time is speech. Again, in modern day, in the contemporary times, what tools state use to establish any system? Speech. Don't write, okay, they fight among themselves. Okay. Within a state, how you resolve your problems? Dialectics. Yeah. So speech. Okay. That speech is also called as logos. Okay. Logos. So that is what was needed to be written down. Next concept which we have to go to is citizenship. Let me start this thing. Easy, very easy. Citizenship. So, understand, in the modern day, usually citizenship is defined from residency in the most modern form, the form. Keep this in mind. In the contemporary times, citizenship is defined from anyone? Residence. The most modern approach or simple approach is this: residence. Citizenship is defined by residence. Okay. Now, residence is one thing. What else you can think of? Anything else? Huh? Place of birth. No, those things will, obviously those are basic ideas. the modern day time, this is the most fundamental thing, residence. Okay, this in the modern times, how it became. So again, I'll give you a basic idea. If you have seen any show on Roman Empire, any movie, any book you have written or have read any book or have seen any show on Roman Empire, you will see in the Roman society there are people who were citizens, and then there are people who were slaves. Have you seen this? Yes. Now, citizens and slaves. Slaves were also living there. Slaves were also born there, but they were not given the citizenship because they were born in slavery. Here, the citizenship derives from bloodline. Okay. So obviously, before the Romans, the Greeks, when they were in authority, something similar must have happened. Obviously, in the Greece also there were aristocracy, and in the democracies also everyone didn't have the right to vote. Again, in these times also there were people who were slaves. There were people who were called as demos. These were not slaves, but also they were not citizens. Okay. And then finally, on top of these guys, there were citizens, okay, of the Athenian society. So Aristotle came up with a very interesting logic. He said that for citizenship, you need to be a participant. So if you have participation in the process of the state, you will be a citizen. So what are the process of the state? The most elementary process of the state is what? Production. Okay. In the contemporary times, if you want to make a government in a country, what is the most elementary thing you'll do? Election. Okay. So, yeah. So, Kim is saying deliberation and lawmaking. Yeah. So, the first thing is the process of lawmaking, and in lawmaking, it won't happen on its own. So, it will happen only through the process of election. Okay. But election is not just one thing. There are many other things. For example, you think about the modern times. Don't think about the Greek time. Okay, think about the modern time. Election is one thing. Then you need to pay your taxes. What is the sign of a good citizen? They will participate they'll vote. Okay. They'll pay their taxes. Okay. They follow the rules. Follow the law, right? These are the symbols of good citizens in the modern day and time. These were exactly the same things in those times also. So Aristotle says that, look, like, understand, they were living in Athens. It was a vibrant place. Okay, trading was connected. Place was there. So he was of the opinion that instead of looking on these things, bloodline and all that, anyone who is participating in the process of the state. The process of the state includes running of the government, making of the law, okay, maintenance of safety and stability. So anyone who is participating in the process of the state should be a citizen. For example, suppose there is a person who is running a business and doing millions and millions dollars of export and import and giving employment to hundreds of people in your country. Don't you think that person should get citizenship? Suppose there is one person who migrated or immigrated from somewhere, came to a country, established himself, started a business, and now because of this person, maybe 1,000 people in your country have employment. Don't you think this person should get citizenship in your country? because his participation in the process of the state is also helping not only him but also the state and the other people of the state, right? This is what Aristotle was talking about. This very law is at present also used in a lot of countries. So for example, anyone has heard about a person called as Lalit Modi? Yes? You've heard the name? Vijay Mallya? You know him. Okay. You know him personally or something? Okay, fine. I was like, maybe. Okay, yeah. So if you see whether it is Lalit Modi or Vijay Mallya and all these people, you'll always find them. These guys are living in London. How they are allowed to live in London? Why? Yeah. The British government have a very simple system. They have not yet got the citizenship in UK, but they are paying taxes, and the offices they run provide employment to 10 or more people. Now, British government says this thing, and 10 is high number. 5. British government says if you are investing more than £5 million in UK and you are giving employment to more than 5 UK citizens, we will give you residency permit and will fast track the process of your citizenship. Simple as that. What is this law? This law is nothing but you are participating in the process of the state. This is what it is. So this is an Aristotelian concept which is very modern and used by a lot of modern countries. Now, since we are talking about citizenship, I'll just explain this thing, taking 2 minutes. Understand, there are 2 kinds of citizenship which is most famous. One is called as JUS, but it is called as jus. Okay, it's a Latin word, jus sanguinis. Okay, right, that means is right by blood. This is a Roman concept from the Roman Empire, that you will only get the citizenship if your parents were the Roman citizens. Okay, and no matter which part of the world you are, if your parents were Roman citizens, you will have the Roman citizenship. If your forefathers are not Romans, no matter where you are, even if you are born and brought up in Rome, you will not have Roman citizenship. Okay, this is jus sanguinis. The second is jus soli. This is called as right by birth. This talks about, this is English civil law. Okay, and this says that if you are born in a particular place, no question will be asked, you will get the citizenship. Okay, now this is a concept which is used in United States, and this is something which Donald Trump hates. Okay, now the United States story is very different. Since we are talking about it, let me explain that thing. So United States had a very simple thing. Everyone knows that a civil war happened in United States. Anyone knows? Anyone has heard about the American Civil War? Yes or no? Online section? Yes. Okay. So in the American Civil War, you will see that the Americans got divided into the North and the South. The northern states had declared end of slavery earlier, and the southern states had not. Now, when the war ended in 1865, and the slavery was completely not only abolished but also prohibited, okay, what these guys will do? If I tell you, for example, untouchability was banned in India in 1947 itself, leave about 1950, okay, immediately they started executing it by the government order itself. It became a law on 26 November 1949 that untouchability will be illegal, but for government order they started implementing it 1947 itself. But even now there will be people you can find in some places in India who still practice untouchability. So it is but natural that in United States also, just because you have said that there will be no slavery, do you think there will be no slavery? There will be. It's difficult, right? Now what these people will do? These African American people who were economically not well to do, they were working as slaves in farmlands. Now you are saying, okay, you are not no more slaves. What they will do, where they will go? At least if they are living on that same land, the landlord will treat them like a slave only still. The first thing they have to do is they will run away from there. If they will run away from there, where they will go? Financially, they are not capable. Security, they don't have. They are not literate, leave about being educated. Right? So the first thing, they will be immediately resold into slavery. So United States government, or what they will do with their children who will be next generation? A lot of people in those times came also with the idea that return these people. All these African people, they were actually Africans. So they should be resent to the African continent. But where you will send them? No one have any idea. They were, in 1865, there were African American slaves whose forefathers came to Africa as slaves in 1600 and 1700s. Their families are now on the ranches, okay, on the cotton farms for more than hundreds of years. What they will do? So therefore, to keep this thing in logic, because of this end of the slavery, and when the slavery ended, then the American government was unable to trace the back record of each of the African American people. Americans came up with this idea of jus soli. That means you are born here, you will be given the citizenship, done. No questions will be asked. If you are born here, the citizenship will be given. Okay? That is why this whole concept evolved. Now, in India, and keep this thing in mind, this is also the modern approach in the English civil law. In the Roman law, from the 1st century AD, okay, they came up with this jus sanguinis, that is law, rule citizenship by blood. It's more acceptable in the modern times because the world is more globally connected. It can happen, it is very common now that within 2 generations, families migrate from one part of the world to another part of the world. And half of their family is living somewhere else and half of them is living somewhere else. This is very common. Okay? You can find so many people who will say their cousins are living and they are citizens of other country. If you go 100 years back, this was not that common. Okay? If you go 100 years back, this was not at all common that your cousins were citizens of another country, which is actually common now. So under these circumstances, you will see that if someone is living in a country and their children are born, this makes sense to give them citizenship. Okay? And therefore, you will see modern English law propounded this idea, and even India in 1950s, you will see India also accepted this idea. So you will see in 1955, when initially the Citizenship Act was implemented, India went for jus soli. Okay? But over the period, because of consistent influx of immigrant or refugees from Bangladesh, okay, you will see that and subsequent crisis from 1979 to 1984-85 in Assam, okay, you will see the Assam Accord was signed in 1986, and it was decided that an amendment will be brought in. The amendment was brought in, and then India moved from jus soli to jus sanguinis. So now from 1986 onwards, in different part and parcel, we follow jus sanguinis. That means your parents, one of your parents have to be, at present the law says, one of your parents have to be Indian citizen at least, and the second has to be a legal resident for you to get Indian citizenship if you are born in India. Okay, if you are born outside India, one of your parents have to be Indian citizen, and then you can apply to take Indian citizenship at the consulate. Got it? So this is the basic idea of citizenship which you need to know. Now, while talking about section B, paper 1 section B only, we'll discuss these things in more detail, and I will also tell you what really happened in Assam and how this whole thing evolved. then in what citizenship changes or law changes happened in 1986, 1993, 2004, and then 2019. There are a lot of changes of citizenship. But even to understand this basic idea, you need to understand Aristotelian citizenship will only make sense when you are aware about the contemporary citizenship model. Otherwise, you won't be able to compare the things. Okay, that's why it is important that you know what is jus sanguinis and jus soli. Okay, now, if you see in your handout, it's written a citizen is defined not by residence. Foreigners and slaves also reside, nor by the right to sue, but by participation, sharing in judgment and office. His formula: the citizen rules and is ruled in turn. Citizenship is an activity, not a status. It carries duties before it confers protection. That is the noble half. The scandal, of stated honestly, is the exclusion. Now, understand this much. This is the noble half of what citizenship, how he defined it. It sounds great if it can happen. That we are not going to ask your background, just based on your credentials, we'll decide if we have to give you citizenship or not. Great. But nothing from 2005 years back is so simple. There has to be some bad part. The bad part is, Aristotle says women should not have citizenship. Women are not citizens. Women are dependent on the citizens. Men will have citizenship. Okay. Second thing, Aristotle says slaves will not have citizenship. That is also important. So again, understand this thing. Plato didn't focus on these concepts. Aristotle did. He said slaves, women, no citizenship. Okay. So women, slaves, foreigners, and manual laborers are shut out because the deliberative life requires leisure, and leisure requires property. The people who make the good life materially possible are barred from living it. Now, understand this point. He says that unless and until you are participating in the process of the state, you will not be citizens. How you will participate in the process of state? This is a very deliberative work. You have to sit and think. So you will be able to sit and think only when you have time for it. For deliberation, you need time. And you will only have time if you have property, if you are rich. Women and slaves cannot be rich. They don't have property, and therefore they are not allowed to deliberate, and so they don't have citizenship. It's all connected. Argument, look at the argument. I'm not saying the argument is right, but they are saying then since slaves don't have money, slaves don't have property, women cannot own things, they are not free, they are not at their own will, they cannot free to deliberate on things, they cannot participate in the process of the state, and therefore they are not citizens. Okay, now got it? In a way, he is saying, and for this Aristotle can be criticized, and he was and he is criticized now, that what he is saying, that people who are playing the most vital role in establishing the whole system, only because they are materially not strong, can not be living in the system at the same standards. Who is making all the buildings? Slaves. Who is doing all the work? Slaves. Who are put away from enjoying the systems which have been in place? Slaves. Fine. Now, a lot of scholars in the modern day and time says that this is exactly the same thing which happens in the modern times also. The only difference is in the modern times, the slavery has become more straightforward economic. For example, think about it. Since we are talking about Dubai a few minutes back, what do you think, how many people who really worked in the working of Burj Khalifa will be able to build a house inside the Burj Khalifa? None, right? Except the main architect who owns the architectural design company which has designed. I really don't think so anyone will be able to, right? All the malls, all the buildings which are made, or simple as the people who make the road, do you really think that they take their vehicles on those roads? No, right? So this is precisely the same thing. The only difference is Plato has politically, legally defined it. In the modern contemporary times, these things are not legally defined, but economic inequality is such that the outcome is same. Got it? Any confusion in this? Yes or no? Please tell me if you have any confusion. Otherwise, let me then move to the observations of later scholars. Now, as I told you again and again that modern day scholars handle this situation in a very different manner. So the most important, the critique of Aristotelian citizenship came from, number one, Rousseau. You can also write his name as J.J. Rousseau, although Rousseau is fine. His name is Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He is a French scholar who is considered as the father of the French Revolution. He wrote a book in 1763 called as Social Contract, in which he defined what the people should fight for. And it is said that one of the seminal book which was read and appreciated in the French society, and then subsequently people did what they did in 1789. So Rousseau said that the citizenship comes from social contract, no property test. Now understand this point. This is, just give me a second. So now Rousseau, what is saying? Rousseau is saying that there is a social contract. I'm living in this society, in this state. I have to do certain favors to the state. State has to do certain favors to me. Okay. I am not creating any nuisance for the people. People should not create any nuisance for me. It should go both the ways. Okay. That is the reason Rousseau says citizenship comes by the social contract and there should be no property test. Ownership of the property. Ownership of the property is no criteria for citizenship as per Rousseau. Okay. For Aristotle, it is essential. Then another scholar is John Locke. John Locke is an English scholar. He is a scholar from 1760s. Okay. John Locke is a scholar from 1680s. He is French. John Locke is from England. John Locke has written the famous 2 treatises on government, which is considered, and he is considered as the father of liberalism. Okay. The 2 treatises on government, that what government should do and government should not do, how much government should get involved in the working, that is all defined by John Locke. So Locke says that every individual should have certain natural rights. Just because you are a human being, you should have certain rights. These are called as natural right. Okay. Right to life, right to property. Okay. These are natural rights as per Locke. So Locke says natural rights ground membership, not ownership. He says that natural right, one of a natural right is right to live, and live where? Right to, one of the natural rights is right to life. The state will not take action against you without a reason. So right to life. But if you have a right to life, you should also define where the right to life. If someone says that you have the right to life, but right to life inside the jail, is it correct right to life? I'm saying, okay, you have a right to life, but your life will be inside a jail, inside a prison. Is it acceptable? No. It should be in with full freedom, access to public spaces. Okay. So natural right is citizenship. And again, it should not be connected with ownership of property. So that's Locke's idea. Now, then another scholar came, and he is John Stuart Mill. And all these are written in your handout. Okay. John Stuart Mill. and he's a scholar from 1850s and 1860s. Okay, John Stuart Mill is a modern day scholar, pretty modern. Okay, not even 200 years old. So he said participation cannot be rationed by a virtue test, and the participation cannot be rationed by a virtue test. You cannot define that who is participating in the process of the state should only have the citizenship. Now again, understand, other peoples in the 16th, in the 17th century and the 18th century, they were not. What is this? This guy is 17th century. This guy is 18th century. Now, by the 19th century, what they are saying, here at least in the 17th and the 18th century, they were like, yes, participation in the process of the state is important. But here John Stuart Mill is saying that even participation is not mandatory. You cannot always say that someone is not participating, so they will not have the right to live in the state. Okay? The participation cannot be a virtue test. What if I don't participate in the process of the state? Think about it for a moment. Think, very important thing. Have you heard about the Jarwa tribe? Have you heard about Jarwa? Have you heard about Sentinelese people? Who are the Sentinelese people? Most secluded people. And where they live? Andaman Nicobar, there's an island called as Sentinelese Island where Sentinelese people live. Now, these people are endangered species on the verge of extinction. Fine. They live in the Indian territories. Do they participate in the process of the Indian state? No. Are they Indian citizens? They live on the Indian territory. Government of India, because they are on the verge of extinction, Government of India is providing on taking all the steps to provide them safety and security. The best way we can do that is not to interfere in their day and life. Okay. Are they Indian citizens? Will they, if someone comes and, simple, if someone comes and kills people from Sentinelese Island, will the Government of India take the same set of actions which Government of India would have taken for any other Indian citizen? Yes or no? Yes. So can we say that Sentinelese people are Indian citizens? Yes or no? Yes, they are. Do they participate in the process of the Indian state? No, they don't. Right? So, for example, consider someone like a terrorist. Okay? Consider someone like a Dawood Ibrahim. I frankly don't know what's the status of Dawood Ibrahim in the sense that he might have a Pakistani passport. But think about it for a moment. Legally speaking, when you take a passport of other country, Indian passport automatically can get cancelled. But, if you take the passport of another country legally, Dawood Ibrahim is on a run for more than 30 years now. Okay, so he cannot take a passport of another country legally. Okay, he's on the international most wanted list. So he is an Indian citizen. And he is an Indian citizen even now. Do Mr. Ibrahim participate in the process of the state? Do you want him to participate in the process of the states? No. But he's an Indian citizen. So even this categorization, which Mills criticizes, Mills in the 19th century, he says that even participation, for example, suppose there is someone who is an NRI, who is not living in India, and his family is also not in India. Okay? He is continuously maintaining the Indian passport. Okay? Will you take away his citizenship? Usually, do you take away his citizenship? Suppose if he is living in outside India, but he is not taking the citizenship of another country. Intentionally, he is not taking the citizenship of another country. Will you revoke his citizenship just because he is not living in India? Or he comes once or twice in a year for like 10 days. Will you revoke his citizenship? As long as someone doesn't take any other place citizenship. For example, there are so many people. Like for example, you take the example of Shashi Tharoor. Shashi Tharoor was working for a very long period of time in United Nations, from the time of completion of his graduation and the post-graduation and then PhD. Okay, he continuously worked in United Nations till he was in his 50s. Okay, till he was in his 50s, he was working. So for more than 30 years or around 30 years, he was working continuously in United Nations, and he was, wherever he was, surely he was not in India. Not even once, I think so, he was posted in India. Okay. But continuously he maintained the Indian citizenship. Did anyone try to revoke his citizenship? Was he participating in the process of the state in India? No. Did anyone try to revoke his citizenship? No. So this whole idea that participation in the process of the state is essential, that is also wrong. Fine. So that's one thing which Mill says. Now this is 19th century idea. So now you have our observation on Aristotelian concept of citizenship from the 17th century, from the 18th century, from the 19th century. Now look at one from the 20th century. Okay, look at one at the 20th century. So in the 20th century, we have a scholar whose name is Martha Nussbaum. Okay, Martha Nussbaum. She says, strip the exclusion and the core stands. Active participation, citizenship remains the engine of the common good. Now, she says what? Martha Nussbaum. She is Martha Nussbaum is someone who has worked extensively with Amartya Sen also. Okay, so you will see that Martha Nussbaum, she says that first of all, when we are talking about Aristotle, you remove that section where he talks about that some people will not have citizenship, whether it is women or slaves and all these things. You remove that part. The rest of the idea that participation is essential for citizenship can work is a true thing which in the modern day and time it works. Okay, but participation doesn't always mean that you have to participate in vote, participate in the taxes. Okay, participation can happen in a lot of manners. For example, NRI community is living outside India. Okay, yes, as long as they have not taken citizenship, they are Indian citizens. And do they participate in the process of the state? Yes, they do. It is not only that if they don't come and for voting, if they don't pay taxes, that doesn't mean that they are not participating. Their family is here. They have an opinion on the political happenings in the country. Once or twice they are coming back, they are sending money to their family, they are always connected to the family, and they are maintaining the Indian citizenship. Okay, so Martha Nussbaum is saying that as long as the Aristotelian idea is acceptable, as long as we are not considering women and slaves out. Got it? Simple as that. Now, any confusion in this? But he is intentionally maintaining his citizenship. So that means he is intentionally making his citizenship. Look, there is one thing. If you stay outside the country continuously for 7 years without any connection, the state can take action and revoke your citizenship. But in that process also, the citizenship law, if you'll see, Article 11 of the Indian Constitution gives the Parliament this right to define how the citizenship will work. And based on this, the citizenship law was made in 1955, in which it is said that if for 7 continuous years, someone stays outside India without visiting India even once, and they don't maintain or have any connection with the country, then government of India will check what the hell happened to this guy. They will check and they will, if they will get to know that this person has taken citizenship of any other country, then his or her citizenship will be automatically revoked. Suppose if they check and they got to know, no, because of some reason he actually didn't got the time to come back to India, but he want to maintain his citizenship, he will be asked to visit the nearest consulate and renew his passport, and then will be fine. So they'll keep in touch. But after 7 years, they do check. If you also read in detail, in polity also this will be taught, that if the government will not get to know about your whereabouts for 7 years, you're also considered legally dead. That is also a thing. So it's coming from that logic only. Suppose that, yes, there was someone who's gone somewhere. We don't have any idea where this person is. Okay. But that is usually doesn't happen, because if you are holding a passport, suppose you are not coming to India, but you are traveling around the world with that passport. So government of India will get to know if you're using that passport anywhere. Suppose if you have an Indian passport and you are living in America, and from America you didn't came to India, but you went from America to Australia, the records will come to the MEA that, okay, your citizen has traveled from America to Australia, right? So government will have your whereabouts. But yeah, after 7 years, government do check. Okay, it's a legal concepts coming from the British time, which here in the citizenship thing, 7 years comes from the logic that if you are totally unknown for 7 years, government considered you legally dead. Okay, if your whereabouts are not there, this is a concept came during the British times only, that if someone's whereabouts are not known for 7 years for all legal purposes, suppose you have some property and you're gone for 1 month, obviously your family member cannot go and claim it. Okay, but so what is the time period after which the government will say, okay, this person is not to be found, we don't know what the hell happened, and so let it be. That period is 7 years. Okay, yeah. So now the next concept, master and the statesman. This is again a very important concept, master and the statesman. Just give me a second. So master and the statesman. Now think about it. When we are talking about the Plato's idea, over there itself, we are discussing about this thing. Just a moment. Over there itself, we were discussing about this very concept. What do we have here? So citizenship we have done. Law of Martha Nussbaum has done. Okay, wherever you have Martha Nussbaum thing is written. Okay. And the exclusion or removal not essential. Just write down one thing in front of Martha Nussbaum thing. As per her, wherever Martha Nussbaum is written, next to that point, write down, as per her, a just state, J-U-S-T, just state, must secure for every person. A just state must secure for every person the capabilities needed for that participatory life. The capability needed for that participatory life. Capability needed for that participatory life. Okay. That means what? Martha Nussbaum puts one more thing on the efforts of the state, that it is the state's responsibility to make the ecosystem conducive that one can participate in the process of the state. Fine. Now, next is master and the statesman. Now, understand this thing. We have discussed two concepts. There is a concept while reading about Plato, philosopher king. Okay. And we also discussed a concept called as tyrant. when we discuss about tyranny. What is the difference between a philosopher king and a tyrant? Philosopher king is unbiased and tyrant? Okay. So philosopher king is working for greater good of people or of state. Okay. Tyrant is working to remain in power, to fulfill his goals. Okay, this kind of things. Now, suppose your objectives are in line with the goal of the tyrant. For a time period, you feel like tyrant is also a philosopher king. The pointer here is there is a lot of similarities between tyrant and philosopher king. They both are absolute. Okay, and therefore you never can be assured that when a tyrant became a philosopher king or when a philosopher king became a tyrant. Okay. Now Aristotle says this thing, defines this very difference, and Plato has discussed this thing. Plato has talked about this, that philosopher king has to be unbiased and neutral. The moment the sense of biasness comes in and neutrality goes away, that philosopher king converts into a tyrant. Okay, so that is there. But he has explained this very concept in much more detailed manner, and he talks about it. He says, and Aristotle talks about it, he says that there is a character, master. Master can be selfish, okay, and goal oriented. The objective for the master is always their own benefit. That is not the case with the statesman. They are focusing on overall good of society, even at their own cost. Fine. Now, you look at the government in India, the modern form of government which we have right now, the kind of government, believe me, the way the government works, the way police department is there, the judiciary is there, executive branch is there, state government is there, central government is there. This is how it has been since 1935, not 47, not 50. This is how it has been since 1935. Exactly this. If you're living on the ground, roaming around in the city, it's not like the system has changed since 1950. The only difference is between 1935 and 1947, the whole system, the state was led not by statesman concept, but by the master's concept. That was a colonial power. The idea was very simple. For the colonial power, the overall good of the society, even at their own cost, was not at all acceptable. Their concept was very simple, that the selfish idea of authority of the colonial power has to be maintained was of the prime importance. For example, and this is something you will be able to think, wherever you are from, whichever city, whichever part of India you are from, think about the city you are born and brought up, and think about where the district magistrate's home is. Like district magistrate's home, district magistrate office is pretty famous in every city. Okay, so if you think about it, and then think about the police station, and then think about the old part of the city. Think about it. Not Delhi. Delhi was developed separately very late in the modern times. But if you want to Delhi also you can do it. So think about three places, location. the old part of the town, old town, wherever the old town of a city is, then the collector or DM's house, and a police station. And in most of the cases, you will always find that the road which is connecting the old town to the collector's house, there will always be one of a very big police station in between. Think about it and tell me, is it so or not? Some of the new cities you will not find. For example, you say, sir, I went to Noida. That is not the case. No, don't go to Noida. Go to Meerut. Okay. Go to any old city. Go to Guwahati. Okay. Go to any city. You are from Kerala. Which city? Cochin. So yeah, Cochin. Cochin is. Think about it. Even Delhi, I'll give you example. If you are in Connaught Place, okay. So the main route which connects the Connaught Place to the old Delhi, there is a police station in between. Think about it wherever you are, okay, whichever city you are, and in most of the cities, this is how it is. Why this was the case? So it was made by the Britishers, and it was all made by after 1857. Okay, so half of the time Britishers were afraid that what if the natives attack us? Yeah, so all the police stations have been made with the simple first goal that the objective of the police department was never to provide the services to the natives. Okay, it was always to protect this colonial power from the natives. Okay, now this is how that master attribute applies on the ground. Me telling you this thing that look, the masters behave in this manner, selfish manner and all, that is one thing. But it is very much visible even in the architectural design, the planning, urban planning of the cities also. That tells you something. Okay. The new cities which you go, which were lately, like if you go to Chandigarh, no, that will be not the case. If you go into Kolkata and you will go to Salt Lake, that will not be the case. Okay, but if you go to Bhopal, if you go to Patiala, if you go to Meerut, if you go to Patna, if you go to Lucknow, this will be true. If you go to Lahore in Pakistan, if you go to Dhaka, this will be true. Okay. If you go to Rangoon, this will be true. Even if you go to Baghdad, this will be true. Okay. So this is just an example how the masters used to maintain their authority. Okay. Now, so a statesman will not do this thing. When a statesman is in power, and a statesman, I'm not giving any specific example of a specific leader. By statesman, you can see the modern day government who are directly elected by the people. Okay. So they will obviously not do this. Okay. Now, the same thing is applicable in other system also. So, for example, if you see the biggest example is always the police department. Whenever you need to understand this whole idea of exploitation, you always need to look at the working in style of the police department. So you will see that Indian Police Act goes back to 1861. What has happened? In 1857, the so-called first revolt of Indian independence has happened. The Sepoy Mutiny of 1857. And in the Sepoy Mutiny of 1857, the Indians who were working for the Britishers rose up against the Britishers and got the support of the civilians also. So in the aftermath of that attack, when the Britishers got an opportunity to make or develop a police department or working of the police department, you will see that Indian Police Act has structurally paid in such a manner, okay, that now also you are terrified of going to the police. Because it's not like if you will go into the police, you will do something good. No, you cannot. Structure is like that. That has been structured in a manner that instead of serving the people, it has to save and secure the economically well-to-do people from the people at the bottommost strata. It has been made in such a manner. It's not like if you'll go and get into the service, you will transform it. You cannot transform it individually because you are just a cogwheel. The structure was made and it is so. Okay. Now, why it is not getting changed, that's another debate. We can discuss it later. But to explain this thing, I'm giving you example just to show that when this master mentality comes into play while making the policies, this is what happens. Like for example, I always give this example that back in, like before getting into the civil services thing and all, I was a researcher back in United States, and on one Sunday I had some pending work, so I went to my university and I forgot to take the keys. And it was Sunday, so obviously no other researcher was there. So my lab was closed. In that lab, there were 4 or 5 people who were working. I was one among them. So the lab was closed, and I was a graduate researcher. So I went there, and next to my lab, there was another lab, and I was like, what to do? I don't want to go back. My home was like 4 kilometers from there. So from the another lab, a girl came out, and she was like, call the cops. They'll come and open it. I was like, okay, is it possible? And she was like, yeah. And I called the police department. 2 guys came. They were like, yeah, it happens. We get it. Okay, fine. They brought along the keys. I called and I told them initially. They brought along, they opened it. If I would have called the Indian police, okay, to open the lab door, they would have picked me up and would have filed an FIR against me that I have stolen stuff from my own lab. Okay, and then charge me 50,000 rupees just to release me. So keep this thing in mind that and this is not something which these guys have done. The moment anyone gets into the police, the structure is such that they are trained to behave in that manner. Okay, so that's the whole problem. So you always understand the difference between the master and the statesman mentality. We are not focusing here to say that, look, this person behaves like a statesman, this person behaves like a master. That is not the job of this class. The idea is to tell you that what is the difference, master versus statesman. Okay. So now, for example, you will see that district magistrate. Okay. You come to places like Delhi. Okay. And you go to smaller cities. In smaller cities, you will see the district magistrate is too powerful. Okay. In Delhi, do you even know who is the district magistrate? It happens. Okay. So that's the whole system which comes from the colonial things. So keep this thing in mind that this is just to give you an example. Now on a bigger scale, when we are talking about master versus statesman, so you see this idea that again the leaders from around the world who have accordingly worked. So we'll take the example of someone like a Lee Kuan Yew. How many people are aware about Lee Kuan Yew? Who was Lee Kuan Yew? Anyone? Lee Kuan Yew. Anyone? Lee Kuan Yew? No? Okay, have you heard about a place called Singapore? Yeah. Singapore? Okay. So Lee Kuan Yew was the first Prime Minister of Singapore from 1963 onwards. Even before when they joined Singapore for a small period of time to Malaysia, Lee Kuan Yew was there, and then they got out and then they made their own country. So Lee Kuan Yew is considered as one person who led the country from absolute poverty to a first world country. Okay. Now Lee Kuan Yew is considered someone who is highly authoritarian. Singapore is considered only one example in the world where an authoritarian ruler has actually improved the condition of people. Okay. In modern times, it has not happened anywhere else. Okay. So Lee Kuan Yew is much appreciated that he acted in this way. Yes, he acted in this way, that he took authoritative decisions. For example, in Singapore, because it's a port city and people from around the place live there. So if you go to Singapore, they have 4 languages. Okay, they speak their Mandarin, Cantonese, English, and Tamil. And almost people from all the places. Tamil population is there, Cantonese is there, obviously people from Hong Kong, Malay population is there, Chinese population is there, or some English people also there. Okay, now ethnic Malay, ethnic Tamil, ethnic Chinese, ethnic English, everyone is there. What is bound to happen? They keep on fighting between each other. Okay, so Lee Kuan Yew came up with a very interesting idea. What was the idea? Have you heard about it? No. Think about it. What was the idea? What solution Lee Kuan Yew came up with? Lee Kuan Yew said that no one in the country of Singapore will be allowed to purchase houses. Government will make house and government will give you house. You will pay the EMI. EMI will be low. You will get a house for sure. But even if you have money, even if you want to make a separate house for your own self, you will not be allowed. They allowed it in very later stage. Initially, they were like, no, everyone have to live in government houses. Okay. And then they made a law that suppose out of 100%, I don't know this number, I'm just guessing it. Suppose there are 55% people who are Malay. Okay. 25% people who are Chinese. Okay. 15% people are Tamil and 5% people are Europeans. Okay, this is the whole thing. So he did what? He said, okay, then if we are making a colony, in each and every colony, 55% houses will be allotted to Malay, 25% to Chinese, 15% to Tamil, and 5% to English. You people are fighting between each other. So what I will do, I will make you all stay together. In a normal country, what will be the way out? In a normal country, you will say, no, these people are fighting too much. Tell them to live separately. That's the basic idea, and that leads to formation of a concept called as ghettoization. Okay, this is what leads to ghettoization. Whether you see the people, Jewish ghettos or the Muslim ghettos in what we call as Jerusalem. If we have seen that whole ghettoization happening in India also, that the ghettoization happens in Delhi. Okay, that ghettoization happens in Karachi, ghettoization happens in Dhaka. Okay, this guy says no ghettoization, no same community living together. You people are fighting between each other. Okay, I'll make you all live together. What you will do? You will fight for 1 day, you will fight for 2 days, you will fight for 7 days. On the 10th day, you will be bored. Okay, every time you will fight, every time I'll send police. Every time you'll be picked up, every time you'll be beaten. How many times you're going to fight each other? In the worst to worst case, what will happen? The whole generation will fight. Okay, but the next generation? Right now, whenever a Tamil family is making food in their house, the smell is going to a Chinese family, they are very upset. Next time when the Chinese are making their food, the Tamils are upset. I get it. But by the next generation, the successive generation of the Chinese family and the Tamil family will be habitual of each other. They are not going to fight anymore. They're like, fine, it's fine. This is how it is. Okay. So cultural assimilation will happen over the period of time. And this is precisely what happened. Now think about it. On day one, when this allotment was done, do you really think the Malays and the Chinese and the Tamil and the English were really happy to live next to each other? No, they were not. But there was no other way. So was the decision authoritative? Was the decision dictatorial in the simplest sense? Yes, the decision was dictatorial. But was it done with the intention for personal gain? No. It was done with the intention of overall good for the society. Now, this is an example of an acting statesman. That if the overall good of the society is going to give a small harm at this stage, it has to be done. It has to be done. This is the way out. Okay. So that is the concept of statesman. Now, what a master will do? A master will not behave like this. They will like immediate solution. What's the objective? Immediate solution. These guys are fighting. Allot each of them separate areas. You will live from house number 1 to house number 50. I'll make a wall on the next to house number 50, and from house number 51 the other group will live. They will have separate roads, separate gates, and they will not meet each other and they will not fight to each other. This will resolve your immediate problem, but in the long run it will not be good for the whole state. So that's the difference between the master and the statesman. Now if you'll see in your handout, it's written one distinction from book 1. When it's saying book 1, that means book 1 of his seminal book Politics. Asked verbatim in 1994, the master, who is a despot, rules slave in his own interest, despotic rule. The statesman rules free equals in turn in the common interest, political rule. They differ in kind, not degree. Ruling citizens as if they were subjects is not strong government, but perverted government. Keep this key. It unlocks the classification we will build next, that after this. So now understand this thing, that this is the basic difference between master and statesman. Now if you want, you can make a note of Lee Kuan Yew. Okay, please make a note of Lee Kuan Yew on the side. Write down, if you Lee Kuan Yew, the Lee Kuan Yew, the leader of Singapore from 1963 to 1994. Lee Kuan Yew, the leader of Singapore from 1963 to 1994, is considered as the one positive authoritarian rule in the 20th century. One positive authoritarian rule in the 20th century. In the 20th century. In the 20th century. And his characteristic behavior to take authoritative decision which are not liked by many, for greater good, is appreciated. Now can you come up with any other person who has taken such decision and who have behaved in this manner, whom we can call a statesman, that they know that immediately the decisions they are taking they will be criticized for, but they also know that in the long run they will be celebrated or appreciated? Don't say Gadkari ji for ethanol. Okay, anything else? Yeah. Any example? Any example anyone can come up with? No? Okay. Have you guys heard about Winston Churchill? Yes. Winston Churchill can be, if you see, Winston Churchill is considered as the one of such statesmen. If you will read more and more about Second World War, you will get to know that there have been many times in 1940 when the Britishers were on the verge of going for ceasefire. Okay, and a lot of British politicians, even those who were inside the government of Winston Churchill, were of the opinion that the British government should reach out to the Germans and sign a ceasefire agreement. Let the Germans occupy France, let the Germans do whatever the hell they are doing in Europe, as long as the Germans assure the British that they are not going to attack British islands, as in like the mainland Britain. Okay, that ceasefire should be reached out. But what Churchill did, Churchill single-handedly said that no, I will not do this. Okay, ultimately he won. Imagine if he didn't. Fine, it could have happened. Now if you people are more interested in this, there is a very great movie about this where Gary Oldman has played Winston Churchill, called as The Darkest Hour. Have you seen it? Yeah. So do go and watch The Darkest Hour. Yeah, I'll just write that thing. Darkest Hour. Okay, I'm not sure where it is available. Gary Oldman played Winston Churchill, and he was much appreciated for it. So you can watch it and you'll get some idea about it. So that is one thing. Okay. Now, there's a question in 1994 question. The authority of the master and that of the statesman are different from one another. Okay. Now, authority, how it is different? The authority, understand, the statesmen have the moral and ethical authority also. Okay. The master doesn't have a moral authority. Okay. So that's the key idea. Now, after this, next idea, the classification engine. That is where we are now going to talk about the middle class. If you see, the next topic which we have to cover is called as the classification engine. Let me just see if you need to cover anything else. No, fine. The classification engine. If you remember, while talking about Plato, we talked about 5 different concepts, developing from aristocracy to democracy to tyranny to oligarchy, okay, all those things, okay, and to democracy and all, giving in those lines only. And now we are going to apply the Aristotelian idea. Now Aristotle says what? There are, for everything there are 2 extremes. There are 2 extremes. And the perfectness is somewhere in between. Okay. So here also he says the same thing. He says that, look, the extreme for everything is bad. Okay. So he says that, look, what can happen? If there is a king, okay, the king can act in a benevolent manner. Okay. The king can act in a tyrannical manner. Okay. So understand that, suppose if there is a rule of 1, okay, the rule can be of 1, if only 1% is the ruler, absolute ruler. If everything is going great, the king is benevolent and following on everything for the greater good of the population, it is called as monarchy. Suppose the same ruler, the head of the state, becomes a tyrannical ruler, or he only does things for his own gain, it is called as tyranny. I'll give you an example. Now, have you heard about the crusade, the war when the English led and they expanded and fought up till Jerusalem and all against the Muslim rulers and all that also in the 13th century? Have anyone heard about crusade? Has anyone heard about crusade? Yes. Who was the ruler of Britain in crusade? Or England in crusade, not Britain, England? Who was the ruler of England in crusade or during crusade? No idea? Richard. Yep, Richard. Richard the Great. Okay, Richard the Mighty. Once he was actually kidnapped. England had to give the overall tax collected for the whole, from the whole country of 4 years was given to guys who have kidnapped Richard, just to get him back. So Richard, okay, you guys have not, anyone has seen, have you heard or seen about the story of Robin Hood? That all goes back to the same period. Okay, so Richard was the king. Richard took the fighting forces and fought in Europe, fought in the what we now called as up to the verge of Middle East also. All that is fine. Richard was fighting. England was losing a lot of money, but still everyone was happy. Understand this thing? Because they, in a way, they had this sense that he is fighting for the greater glory of the state and the greater glory of the faith also. So people were happy. Richard died. Okay, Richard died. And then Richard's brother came to power, whose name was John. Now, After, when John came to power, immediately the French attacked because they know John was good for nothing. So the French attacked, and the John needed support of the people. He needed more taxes, he needed more resources to fight the French, and no one was supporting him. So this step went not well. So you see this, and you will understand that what the John started doing when people are not supporting him. John starting attacking his own feudal lords and taking over their properties and taking over their jewelry and other resources to use it to fight against France. Very soon the people inside England stood up against John itself. Now, why I've told you all this story? Understand. Richard was taking these men. Richard was also taking their own money. And Richard was going and fighting outside their country somewhere in another land. And people were happily giving everything to fight him. John was asking for money to save their own land. And people were not ready to give it. And they were like, you are an idiot. The reason is what? They knew that Richard was doing whatever he was doing for the greater glory of the faith and the greater glory of the state. Whereas John, whatever was he was doing for saving his own skin. Okay. So John comes in the idea of tyranny. Although Richard is not some very good king, but anyway, Richard will come inside your monarchy. Who is using more money? Who is making the people poor? Actually, if you will see, it was actually Richard. He was asking for more money, he was asking for men, and he was fighting a war which actually not going to affect England in any way. Okay? And still people were like, fine, great. John was saying, give me money, I have to save you guys from France. And the people were like, no, you are mad, will not give you money. Because the idea here was different. Make sense? So that's the very difference between monarchy and tyranny. Now Aristotle says when absolute ruler is there, only one person is ruling. One person is ruling. Rule of one. It could be okay. Thank you. It's audible now. Please confirm if it's audible or not audible. And also do tell me if anything has been missed in last few minutes. Yeah, okay. So now, if few people are ruling, suppose these people who are ruling is a group of few people, 10, 12, 15, they are like kind of ministers and all. Okay. And these are good enough people. They know their job and they are ruling. Okay. Then it is called as aristocracy. If suppose these guys who are ruling, they are ruling, but they are ruling with their own hidden agenda. They are ruling in the sense that how I should make a policy so that the company of my children will make a lot of money. Okay. Then it's called as oligarchy. Got it? So this is in the sense, this is the other part of it. Now, finally, if it's not even rule of few, okay, it's rule of many. Rule of many. Okay. So now, here is the fun part. Here Aristotle says that if it's working properly, it is called as polity. And if it is decayed, it is called as democracy. Keep this thing in mind. Aristotle says that if a lot of people are ruling and they are taking decisions only on the basis of whim and fancy, I like this person, democracy. Why is saying so? The best example of what can go wrong with democracy actually happened 10 years back with Donald Trump coming to power. Donald Trump coming to power is the best example of what Plato and subsequently Aristotle have been mentioning for 2500 years, that look, this can go wrong. Okay. Who is Mr. Trump? Understand this point. This is very important. Understand this point. Mr. Trump got the support of the democracy in the United States. Yes. What are the credentials of Donald Trump? Does he have any experience of running the government? No. What is there with Mr. Trump? Huh? He's a TV personality. It's not about business. Understand? Along with Trump, it also happened in Ukraine. Vladimir Zelensky came to power. If you go and read about who Vladimir Zelensky is, now, a lot of people can say that Ukrainian president is much more, yes, he is much more sincere when it comes to politics. That's true. But even he came to power in the democratic system by using the same methods which Plato has criticized or Socrates has criticized as being taught by the sophist, that tell people what they want to hear. Okay. Tell people what they want to hear and they will vote for you. So everyone has heard about Vladimir Zelensky. Are you aware who Vladimir Zelensky is? Yes. Everyone in the class know who Vladimir Zelensky was. I'll give you both the examples, Zelensky and Trump's. So, what Mr. Zelensky used to do before he became the president? No idea? Anyone? What Mr. Zelensky used to do? Online section. Mr. Zelensky was a comedian. Okay, Mr. Zelensky was a comedian. You can go on Netflix and you can watch the show also. So, in 2015, Vladimir Zelensky was a stand-up comedian and he made a comedy show called as Servants of the People. Okay. The story, the plot of the Servants of the People was this, and this is a very interesting show. You can watch it. The initial episodes are really good. After that, it's bores. The show is on the line that here is a guy, 43-year-old guy who is divorced and living with his parents and is a history teacher for the high school history teacher in his city. Now, everyone is upset from him that what the hell he has done with his life. He's not achieved anything great in his life. He's living with his parents still. He's divorced, all that. One fine day, listen to this, one fine day, he was taking the class and some other faculty came, and maths teacher, I think so, and he said that, sir, I need to complete my course and can you please give me your class? And I was like, no, I have to teach history to the teachers, to the students. Principal came in, principal told him that no, maths classes are more important than history classes. And the principal cancelled the history session and re-allotted the class to the maths teacher. He got very upset. He went to the staff room. And when he was in the staff room, he started criticizing that, look, this is what is wrong with the world. You people are not listening or not going through history. You are not reading what went wrong in history. And then since the children will not learn history properly, they in the successive generation will go and vote for wrong people and they will be elected, and that's why corruption happens, that's why bad governments comes in, and all those things he said. Right? So when he was cursing and doing all this thing, some students of his class only video recorded him and put that thing on internet. He got viral, and when he got viral as a joke, and jokes happen a lot, Cockroach Janata Party, we also have one joke. which started as a joke, but at least there is lathi charge happening. So physically tangible things are happening. So it started as a joke. People started saying that if this guy has such good opinions and he basically knows everything, why don't he only contest in the election? So on the online level, they started saying that he should fight the election. Okay. Now, his one student from his classroom only then went and made a fund where they collected money for him to file the nomination. So they collected the money for him to file the nomination, and he said that I will not file the nomination. Like a normal person, he said, oh, but this is a joke, I am not going to file the nomination. Then media came to his house. The media people also went to the children's house, the people who collected the money, and they started asking the students, what you have done with that money? You have collected the money and now you have eaten away all the money. So students got upset. They were like, look, we have not done anything wrong. All we wanted is to do this thing. And now, so they collected all the money and brought the media along and gave the money to him in hand. I was like, we don't know. We are not corrupt. We are just children. Here is the money which was collected for you to file the nomination. If you don't want to file the nomination, keep the money, but we are going away. Now media was behind this guy. Okay, now you have the money, why you're not fighting election? So he also got upset. So what he did is like, okay, just take away this money. I don't need this money. He filed the nomination and went his home. And luckily or unluckily, he won the election. Okay. So the show starts from the very point that this guy became the president of Ukraine. This is a show in 2015. Now the whole story of the show is once he became the president of Ukraine, what all he did, how he transformed Ukraine. For 2 years, this show came in Ukraine, and it became so popular and such a hit that in 2017, he actually made a political party and contested the election and actually became the president of Ukraine. Right? That 2 years of show, Servants of the People, and I've just narrated you what is there in the first episode of the show. So if you want, you can go and watch it. I think so it's on Netflix. The idea is what he used the concept of rhetorics, which is taught by the sophist, and propagated it for 2 continuous years as a propaganda material in his favor on TV shows itself. This is what has happened. I'm not saying that Mr. Zelensky has done it intentionally. I'm pretty much sure in 2015 never has thought that, okay, this will become such a hit that I'll become president. But what happened? That whole show became a election manifesto for him. Right? Sorry? Yeah. Same thing happened in Tamil Nadu. Vijay has, if you see in past 12-13 years, continuously all the movies he's making, everyone knew what he's going to do. Right? Now, take for example Donald Trump also. Now, if you see Donald Trump is good for nothing. Anyone will tell you that the kind of money Donald Trump's father has left him, if he would have put that money in fixed deposit, he would have ended up with more money than the amount of money he has right now. Okay, so basically he has wasted all the money. But in 2006, he started being casted in a show called as Apprentice, okay, in which it is shown that he is a very popular, very capable, very famous entrepreneur, okay, and then he hires people, he allots them work, they do the work, he analysis is done, and then he gives a report to them, and whosoever doesn't perform well, he fires them. Okay, so the show started in 2006. It was much appreciated in America. Now the problem was the general perception in the people, what it went was that all these jobs are given by Trump. He is observing them, he is giving them a feedback, and who are not doing well, he is removing them. No one really, the public perception never went into this, that he is just playing a character, and all this is already done by a team of people, and the analysis is given to him on the screen, just you have to play this role. No. People have developed this, again, this is the rhetoric which sophists used to provide. that he was able to assert authority among the people. That look, he is the guy who is able to judge right and wrong. And so when he contested election in 2016, he was to play on it as if, look, I am the big businessman who know what is right and what is wrong. And people were continuously watching that show for 10 years. So they had back in their head that, okay, he's an intelligent guy who knows what is right and what is wrong. Right? And they voted for him. Like this, there are many examples. And this is the faultness in democracy. This is what happens wrong in democracy, where using the rhetoric which is defined by the sophist, you can easily win an election. Like you might have heard in elections, there are so many different companies and organizations who helps election candidates to win election. For example, if guys have heard about a person named Prashant Kishore. Have you heard about Prashant Kishore? No? Okay. Go and Google about Prashant Kishore. Okay. Mr. Kishore used to run a organization called as IPAC. Okay. Now, Mr. Kishore is the guy who came up with this whole idea of chai pe charcha. When Mr. Modi was fighting the election in 2014, it is said that it was Prashant Kishore who was handling things from the back. Okay. So he came up with this idea of chai pe charcha. Someone called Mr. Modi a chai wala. So he came up with the idea of chai pe charcha, and they eulogized this whole idea that look, this is he made this, popularized this idea of rags to riches. Everyone likes the story of rags to riches. Understand this point if I tell you tomorrow that Anant Ambani has started a new startup. Okay, and he got a funding of 10 crore rupees. Okay, you will block me for telling me that thing. You're like, yeah, we know. He wears watches which are costly than 10 crore. Okay, no one cares about it. But if I tell you that someone from this class came up with the idea and then they started a startup and then they got 10 crore rupees as a startup funding, everyone will be like, yeah, this is great. Because everyone likes to listen to a rags to riches story. So what they did, to impress the democracy, you need to give a rags to riches story, because majority is always rags. Okay. So people will be able to identify him. So they popularized this idea of Mr. Modi being a chai wala, and it worked. So this is something which we need to understand, that one of the major crises of rule of the many is the democracy, or in the democratic model, the electorate is easily influenced by the rhetoric and then votes as per the rhetoric. Okay, and that is really, really, really bad. Okay, so this is something you have to keep in mind. Right? Got it? Yeah. So then he says, but if somehow the electorate is saved from the rhetoric, if the electorate is knowledgeable, then and votes based on what they actually need, then the government which will be made will not be democratic but based on polity. Okay. So he therefore says that the best form of government, what is one extreme form of government which is bad? One extreme form of a government which is bad is tyranny. Tyranny. The worst form of one-person government is tyranny, and the worst form of many-person government is democracy. In between, there is a system which is called as policy, where it is a government of many, but at the same time, the electorate, these many, are knowledgeable and they know on what ground they should vote and on what ground they should not vote. And if that happens, it becomes a polity. Now, a lot of scholars say that this polity is again an ideal state. And therefore, can we say that we live in a polity? So no, never. It's an evolving idea. Now, for example, you'll see so many times it happens in India, and that central government election or union election, okay, and state elections happens side by side, okay, and the same people will vote for another party in union election and another party in state election. It happens. If this happens, that shows what? That shows your electorate, your people was so knowledgeable that they understood that the task for this union government is different. For that, a separate party is better. The task of the state government is different. For that, another party is better. If the people are able to differentiate that thing, that means they are knowledgeable. This is one example. Every time this happens, you will see a lot of scholars and everyone appreciates this thing. That okay, at least people now know it. Okay. So the whole struggle is this only. If you can make the electorate knowledgeable, if you can make the system in which people will start voting instead of on the lines of caste or religion or tribe, they start voting for exact demands. If there is like one of the major problems which happens in India, if there is a municipal corporation election, people are saying, okay, when my road is going to be built. If there is an MLA election, still people are like, when my road is going to be built. If there is an MP election, they are still like, when my road is going to be built. Your MLA and your MP are not going to make your road, no matter what you do. That's not their job. That's not in their purview. Okay. But since the road are not built, that's the major concern of the people. Okay. So you need to understand that's the whole logic of polity and democracy, which you need to understand. Okay. In your handout, it's written, if you see, trap 1, in his vocabulary, democracy is perverted, lawless rule of the poor. Polity is the healthy rule of the many. Our constitutional democracy is far closer to his polity. Okay. Can we see our constitutional democracy which we have in India is polity? So no, it's not perfect polity, but it is somewhat closer. The scheme is not static. Each true form decays into shadow. Constitutions are stations in cycle, and it can go up and down. Again, can tyranny will always be bad? No, we don't know. You can always get a Lee Kuan Yew kind of a leader who ultimately will be trying to do good for you. But that only happens once in a while. Okay. We have one example in 2000 years. So how often it happens, you can see. Yeah. Not a tyrant, as I should say authoritarian ruler. Tyrant is not a correct word. Tyrant itself has a negative connotation. I should call him an authoritarian ruler. Two caution before you use the grid. First, Aristotle's vocabulary, democracy is the perverted form, the lawless rule of the poor in their own interest, while polity is the healthy rule of the many. When he condemns democracy, he is not condemning what we call democracy today. Second, the scheme is not static. Monarchy decays into tyranny, aristocracy into oligarchy, polity into democracy. Constitutions are stations in cycle, not fixed types. Okay. Now, after this, we have to look into the polity and the characteristic features and what role state people play in this whole system of polity, and then rule of law. So we'll discuss it in the next lecture. Okay. Any queries? Please ask me. It is considered that in the small city states, okay, for example, if you see Roman society was never really a democracy. It was always an aristocracy. So many people were living, but only 500 to 800 people were actually voting in the elections. So aristocracy works like this. These are knowledgeable people who are economically also well off. They are coming together to run the state. It is considered that since they are already knowledgeable and economically well off, the chances of them being corrupt will be very less. If they become corrupt, then that aristocracy evolves into oligarchy. No, they are not selected by the people at all. They are selected based on their capabilities. For example, if you see the American system of government, okay, so when the president is elected, then the president appoints the secretaries, and the secretaries are appointed on the whim of the president. For example, in India, if you'll see, ministers who are not contesting elections, and then they are made or to become minister based on certain categorization they have, certain capabilities they have, and subsequently they are sent into Raj Sabha. They can be said as a very fine example of aristocracy. Someone like a Manmohan Singh, who was made prime minister, he had expertise and he was loyal to a certain group of people, so he was made prime minister. He would not have won an election, so he will be considered a fine example of aristocracy. Someone like a S. Jaishankar, someone like a Hardeep Puri, okay, these guys will never win an election, okay, but they are there because it's not like they are dishonest people. They are honest people. They are knowing their work, and that's why they are where they are. So that's how aristocracy works. Okay. Now imagine if after coming to that position, one starts minting money, one starts doing things in which corrupt means are involved, then that aristocracy becomes oligarchy, which is very much visible in the Russian state. Now I'll just take 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Bhaiya, 2 minutes. Banni ke na? So for example, if you'll see I'm coming to a question. If you see the example of Russia, okay, after the Soviet disintegration in 1991, all the PSUs, public sector units, were there, and they were sold to random people, okay, at pretty low prices, okay. All these people made a lot of money from 1991 to 1996. 97-98 government again went into doldrums. When Vladimir Putin came to power, he understood it well enough that these guys have already made a lot of money. So if I'll try to push them out, okay, I am not going to stay. So he said nothing for the initial 1 year. He asserted his authority for the 1 year. Around year 2000, when he was sure that, okay, now I am the real boss, they cannot push me out, then he started taking back the control. Even now, there are many people who work as they are again and again called as oligarchs. The reason being that these are the people who own or run institutions which otherwise were owned by the state. Now they own it, and the money which they made is considered that is used by the Russian state, okay, or by the Vladimir Putin and nearby people for running the whole political apparatus also. So they are part of the system which is not the state, but it's of a shadow states which is making sure the state remains in the form it is. So that's why it is oligarchy. Is the money going for the people? No. But is the money going through the people? Yes. Okay. Sir, then what is the difference between aristocracy and meritocracy? Aristocracy and meritocracy, look, understand, meritocracy will always start and will always take everyone into consideration. Aristocracy cannot be said that will be taking everyone into consideration, okay, as well as if, yes, this is true, if inside meritocracy itself you will consider that the people who evolve further than a certain point can be called as aristocrat. Yes, in one ideal situation, not always, but ideal situation, you will say that aristocracy is a subset of meritocracy. Okay, if it makes sense. Like I gave you the example of whether it was Manmohan Singh or S. Jaishankar or Hardeep Puri. All these people came to the position, at a certain position, because of the merit only. But after that, they were, like Manmohan Singh became the RBI governor because of merit. But believe me, he didn't become the prime minister out of merit. That is a lot of more networking and faith and loyalty and those things comes to play. So that is where aristocracy plays a role. Okay, S. Jaishankar have been a bright student throughout his life. He has completed his PhD at the age of 22. Okay, so he was a meritorious person. But then it's also true that S. Jaishankar is also the son of Subramaniam Jaishankar. Okay, who is actually the national policy maker of the nuclear policy of India. So he was always the part of the upper epsilon of the society. He was always part of the aristocracy. Okay, if someone says you otherwise, don't accept that. Okay, he was always someone who was born and brought up in a family where people who and who's of the whole India were known to them. So he was always coming from that. So keep this thing in mind, that you can always see that in an ideal situation, not always, but in an ideal situation, aristocracy is a subset of meritocracy. In an ideal situation. Otherwise, in normal day, it is much more close to oligarchy. Yeah. Done? Any other queries? Chalo, then we'll wrap up. Thank you, bhaiya. Band kar dijiye.